And good evening, Smite Night fans. Welcome to week 4 of season 5. We have a very interesting match coming up here in the Ragnarok division. A team who promoted up here in Ehete 2, and a team who demoted down here with Team Toxic. I am Supersonic Blur. I am joined by the fantastic Haunting. And looking at these two teams, looking at how the state of the game is going right now, there is so many things for talking points here, Haunting. Take your pick.
I suppose the first thing to start off with is our teams, in that Ehete 2 is a team that were promoted up into the Ragnarok division. Team Toxic team, they were demoted down into the division. So what we're looking at is really the two yardsticks for this division, right? We're looking at one of the most recent entries on either end, and this will be a really good test for seeing and displaying what the division looks like. And on the other side of things, as you said, the state of the game, we are closing out a patch that I feel like has been reasonably controversial. I think a lot of people were excited about 10.1, 10.2, tempered a lot of that excitement. And now this will be a wonderful swan song to the start of year 10, because everything changes tomorrow and I'm scared.
I'm very scared as well. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about for this picks and bans. We're still on this patch. So let's go ahead and get on in. It is Team Toxic who are taking first pick here. And I believe as well that good old Mitochondria will not be in this matchup. So we don't have to worry about that. But of course, Surtur is going to be around. And we were having a bit of a conversation about this Surtur just before we went live and things. Do you think that they're going to see any play here at all, maybe?
I think so. There is an element of new god syndrome in Smite where you and I both know, and it's not worth pretending, the majority of gods, when they're released, are overtuned, released above the point of balance. There's a lot of reasons for that, not least just because we've not seen them in the context where the best players get their hand on them, and we can understand what they do. So often they are just a little bit more powerful when they're released, and you need to create excitement.
Yeah, that's the main one.
Over the course of their lifespan. And then it means that we're looking at a god that's still a little bit above the point of balance. I actually think that Surtur's in a really healthy place. He's a god with a really strong laning phase, and I don't want to deny how oppressive he can feel to lane against. But on the other side of things, this is a god that doesn't do
much else.
Right. This isn't like tier, for instance, where a good tier can absolutely run a team fight. I feel like Surtur needs a little bit of help in a team fight, and so I don't feel like he's a god that you necessarily need to spend a ban on if you feel like you're confident that your solo laner can handle a laning phase against him.
Well, as it stands right now, things that aren't being handled are junglers right now. 4 of them taken off the board. 2 late-game hyper carries in the Mercury and Ao Guang for Team Toxic. Whereas we're seeing, we've got an interesting call here with the Thor and the Naja here. These are much more sort of team fight orientated here, but interesting to see between the 2 of them. Is it really just junglers run the game right now, or are these specific targets?
It certainly is, and I think these are some of the gods that you think of at the top of that jungle pool. Some of them for their hypercarry potential, as you say, although I think a god like Ao Guang has gone from being a late-game hypercarry to being a superstar at almost every stage of the game. And then gods like Thor and Naja, not only are they gods that have great teamfight potential, but on this new map where it feels a little bit harder sometimes to protect yourself from ganks, these are gods where if your relics are down, they can feel like a death sentence. So I'm not surprised that they got banned just because of that ability that they have to really turn a game on its head. Plus, assassins have really great itemization right now. And although we did see bans go over to Surtur and Agni, I don't think it's wrong at this point in the game to ban assassins with all 3 of your bans if that's the way that you feel.
It's come out quite nice. Team Toxic going to go with the tried and true Yemoja pickup for the first side of things. So just super solid. Always going to be a nice pick to hag. The Klidna, I was going to ask, do we think maybe this could be that flex to solo side of things? But with the Guan Yu picked up as well, it seems like they want to get something solid here. And hey, you want a Swang Son for how healers are working? You've got Yemoja, you've got Guan Yu. Some of the best for frontline healers, I feel. And Klidna, we were just talking about this idea of what you want to run the jungle. She can at least walk. She can walk through walls and create some interesting gank spots, but I'm not sure how she does at running the game.
Yeah, you lose a lot of the utility that you would have with something like a Thor or a Naja, but although the Guan Yu has been locked in, removing the solo side flex for this clear net, I don't think that it would be totally outlandish to see this pit into the mid lane. With the strength of Bluestone right now for clear, and then again, Assassin itemization, this is a god that feels pretty good in a lane because of the power of that ultimate and your ability to clear from mid range, I suppose. It's not absurd to think of this as being a mid jungle flex, because you're right, this is such a different kind of jungler to something like the Thor or the Naja. But still, if you've got someone who can do the lockdown side of things for you, Cleaner can absolutely blow up a backline.
Certainly can. And my goodness, I completely forgot that we just had Worlds. Maui is a god in the game, and Maui has been kind of silent ever since World. Like, ever since, like, the Worlds blow up with Maui, it's kind of just like they've disappeared off the face of the earth. Are people just finding ways to counter him now, or was it more a case of new god syndrome, like you said before?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think this is a god who people worked out that unless you're using that ultimate for peel, his peel isn't phenomenal. The other side of it is, I think both of the gods that have been locked in as support here, Yemoja and Maui, are very high execution guardians. And that's not something that we're necessarily used to in Smite. I think, although we're used to seeing some people who are very good at things like the Khepri and such, Khepri's a much easier god to play. You can put Khepri in the hands of a lot of newer players, and they can still peel, they can still help with the laning phase. The god is pretty straightforward. Gods like Yemoja and Maui, to play at the level that they excel at, you do need to be able to execute well. And so I think they're typically falling off in your ranked games as nerfs have hit them, and in even lower level competitive, because you have supports that just aren't as confident or haven't had the time to put into playing these gods at the level they need to be played at to run the game, though, in the way that someone like Genetics does.
Well, we're seeing as the second phase of bans come through. 2 more assassins for Team Ehete, Ehete 2. And on the other side of things, trying to take away some of those focus picks for the mid lane, and in that duo lane, Ishtar and Merlin. These two, like, especially the Merlin, with the Tablet of Destinies build, I feel like this is like the premier god. So I'm surprised it made it all the way down to the second phase to ban it out. Now going to see what Ehete wants for their picks. Going against, though, this is the one that we didn't see. We didn't mention necessarily the Cthulhu or the Artemis. The Cthulhu for solo feels like it's that. It almost feels to me like the magical sorter. He wants to come into a lane, dominate it, and then be around in a team fight, but not necessarily leading it. But this Artemis feels like, if I look at an Artemis second pick overall, I'm thinking either they are the best Artemis player in the world, like it's Panda Cat, or that's punishable. And I'm leaning to the punishable side right now.
Certainly, and especially because we've not seen a lot of easy lockdown on the side of Haiti 2, right? Clearnet, not a ton of hard CC. Guan Yu, you've got to invest the ultimate. Maui, you've got to land it. And so this Artemis perhaps feels good into that initially, but then if you think about it, without the escape, much easier to track down and kill for all of these gods too. I agree with you. I'm used to seeing either you've got to be the best artist in the world to play Artemis, or no matter where she truly abuses the items. And given that there are a lot of hunters left up, things like the Rama, things like the Canonos, things even like the Ishtar in that phase, it feels odd to see Artemis locked in immediately here. So perhaps falling back on a comfort pick. But it feels very odd to me to see Artemis as a comfort pick, because, as you say, very easy to punish this god if your positioning isn't on point at all times.
Which I think kind of surprises me that we're then not seeing like the hard punish for it. But I suppose if you, like you said, if you first pick Kleedner Guan Yu, unless you want to start going, okay, Guan Yu support into Kleedner solo, then we pick up the jungler to punish it. You don't have that option.
Right.
Speaking of it, rounding out the Tsukuyomi and Tiamat for Team Toxic, and a Neath now for Ehete 2. And I'm not sure it punishes, but at the same time, I do get the idea with just early pressure.
Early pressure, and although not directly punishing it, you've got that long range route, you've got the stun, you've got things to try and bait out the ultimate or beads so that one of your other picks can come along and try and help you commit and pick up that kill. So I don't hate the Neath at all. Plus, it just gives you some extra map pressure. That ultimate really useful fight in those skirmishes, and there's not a lot of mobility on the side of Team Toxic. Other than the Tiamat leap out of mid lane, both the jungler and the ADC are a little bit vulnerable if they don't have their Emoji around. So I kind of like this Neath being there to almost be your hard CC jungler every time that the ultimate is up.
Well, we'll have to see whether or not that becomes a problem or a boon for Ehete 2. With picks and bans done, let's go ahead and jump on into Game 1 between Team Toxic and Ehete 2. And as you can see, yes, this is the battle of the admins here. Be Like Mike and Judas Priestley are going to be our ADCs. Now, unfortunately, Judas is also our cameraman, so anytime Judas dies, we will not be seeing it. We'll have to guess what happened over there. But it looks like everything else seems pretty about standard for what we were expecting.
Yeah, no weird lane swaps like we talked about being potentially happening in the draft. The Yu Huang, as expected, absolutely going into that middle lane, which does put the cleaner into the jungle. I suppose perhaps the only thing that is still interesting, and I imagine this will be the case for the remainder of this patch, and I don't remember if it got serious nerfs to its jungle utilization in the coming patch, is the fact that both of these junglers have opted to start with the Bluestone Pendant. So their sustain is going to be a little bit worse, but their early clear and their kill potential is going to be a little bit higher because of the passive on that Bluestone.
Agreed, and let's see whether or not that gets used in lanes at all as everyone starts making their way on over. We'll keep an eye on the duo lane for now, as this is where the most volatile nature sits, but level 2s for both of them, and it seems okay. Mid lane actually getting very aggressive here for Team Toxic. Already at this point, Pink is very low on their health, and Zats isn't exactly faring much better.
No, and this is the real concern with this Bluestone is, unlike with Eye of the Jungle, for instance, where you can drop into the jungle and get that HP 5 to get you back up and healthy and moving around. If you get poked out with Bluestone, you can suffer, and it's allowed for just like Azza to move deep into the enemy jungle, pick up the second speed, and presumably hit level 3 a lot faster than Pink will over in the jungle for Ehete 2.
Well, they're going to spot them out and know that it's happened. Just Ping, though. And that was strange. I was looking at that thinking, all right, so fight them, poke them out. And there was no poke at all going across on that side. Zats instead trying to cut them off, but just no attempt to punish at all there. Like, I feel like that needs to be something, but duo lane is getting aggressive here as level 3s do come out. A double root there from Judas is good, and that puts Mike incredibly low, but they are the one with the healer here, so should be okay.
So that's exactly what we want to see from Judas throughout this laning phase, using that poke, forcing Umoja to commit that Omi to the shielding and the healing, because all the time that's being done, you're not at risk of ranged stuns. The Riptide can't be used for that utility, and so using that poke well, getting those roots down, just forcing this Artemis, trying to get those beads out early so that your junglers come in to clean up.
Well, talking about clean up, the dash was used by Kesvet, but unfortunately just too tanky at this point in time. That's that little axe, as well as the life still sustaining up for them, just too good. But I like the call there to try and put some pressure out from Pink. Mid wasn't faring so well, so see if there's anything else you can do.
And I think that's absolutely right as a place to look, because you'd already seen that the enemy duo lane had been pushed deep under tower, so you're not going to get a gank off there. This Cthulhu has been running this lane, so just getting some pressure, doing some poke, always going to be helpful. But now the enemy jungler's arrived, and we could be in with this little skirmish.
It's very much so. The root is there, and it is the Scottish play who ends up taking the brunt of the damage, but thankfully just makes it back to their tower line. And that is safety for them. And this is where I was concerned, is Pink stayed a little too long for my liking. And that allowed Azza to be able to make the rotation on through. But now, once again, looking at the duo lane, it's still just that half a level or so lead. And in these early levels, that's the full level at this point. Level 4 now just being hit by Cheeto and Mike. So they are trying to just poke out Priestley right now. And it's not working out too badly for them.
Right, Judas being forced to hover back. Gonna have a little bit more HP 5 than their lane opponent, Be Like Mike. But with that Death's Toll, Be Like Mike's just got a much easier time staying in this lane. So needs some mana, going to be taxed, trying to use that 2 to heal up. And it does just allow for this Artemis to survive through these early levels a little bit better because of the sustain that Artemis is getting both from the Death's Toll and from the Umoja. And I think it's going to convert into potentially allowing the Artemis to stay safe, farm up, and be that threat that Artemis can be when they get rolling deep into these games. The other thing that it just allows you to do is, once you're feeling like you're in a position of safety, it allows this Yemoja to start roaming around the map. And although Yemoja has faced a lot of nerfs over the years, River's Rebuke is still a hell of a gank tool.
I like how we both paused on the knee ult as well there. Like, is someone coming? No, it's just a knee ult there. But like you said, yeah, it stopped the back. That could be important, but it was getting told by Priestley, who's on production, it was worth. Apologies on that laugh there, but it certainly, we saw that that's the thing that this Neath can do, is just straight across the map. It didn't put any peer in Kesvet right now, but you know, now there's just that thought of, I can do that to you. But it's also a damage check as well, as we can start seeing some items starting to get finished as well. 3 stacking items, 4 now, as we do see Cheeto also having their prophetic cloak now. But that's what I was going to ask, is prophetic cloak versus Thebes. This one kind of is, it feels like personal preference, but what is the reasoning behind both?
So Thebes is the item that gets online quicker, because you need 25 stacks on both. No, sorry, what am I saying? You need 25 stacks on Cloak, but you have to get those stacks from dealing damage to the appropriate damage type, whereas Thebes, you get them just for existing near your laners to get those 55 stacks. You also get very quickly with Thebes, especially if you're around waves, so it allows you to brawl a little bit earlier. Cloak has the better upside, I think, when it's fully stacked, but it is harder to stack, and some gods really struggle to stack it because you need to be able to poke well. So a god like Yemoja actually stacks Cloak really, really well, because she has lots of long-ranged abilities and those long-ranged autos to allow her to proc it much more easily than some gods that are just locked behind perhaps only having one ability that's ranged and having short-ranged autos. So I do like it here for the Yemoja, but it is just going to take her a little bit longer to get into a state where she can necessarily brawl with what the Maui is going to do.
Oh, we did see a bit of a scuff and brawl go back and forth there in the mid lane, as we were discussing that there. A lot of ults got used. Did see a great pull coming through from download later. Unfortunately, Cheeto was able to go ahead and disengage. And now we're going to see a little bit of an invade come through here. No kills on the board, but it's 700 gold up in favor of Ehete 2 right now, even after that invade. And I think a lot of that comes down to just in that mid lane. Do you see what Pink had done with their ultimate? They fired them across the lane at the 2 bastions. It's picking up a fair bit of gold there.
It's a really... I'm still yet to see how impactful the bastions are, but if you're picking up some gold early, especially in these spaces where no one's really died yet, anything getting you a
cheeky.
Oh,
that's a lot of damage now. Out comes the beads and download later with the up down. Azza falls down. Not a great look for them. And Terra ends up being the one who gets eating a lot of the damage. Gets pulled back in as well by the dueling dragons. Cheeto, though, does go ahead and take the legendary fish hook. So not too bad for them. But Terra Timzor there eating the Neatho. Could have spelled a lot of damage there. As you can see, they were forced to disengage really quickly, and now Judas is still just racking up some farm out on this lane, but still making an impact. Beads used by this Tiamat just about gets away, but Zats is really hungry for a kill there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Zats, but it does allow you to pick up some extra farm, and having fallen behind a little bit in the XP in that mid lane, I think that's going to be really important for this Yu Huang, because with the way that builds are going and the way that you just scales. Oh, that was a great ult.
Oh, it might just be a great ult. In fact, it actually stops the engage coming through from the 2 ganking. And somehow Mike now is going to be able to walk this one away. Got the movement speed to run back to the base. The trap is perfectly placed. And the beads to follow it up as well. They actually get away, and they're turning around because they've got lifesteal. Piercing Moonlight is back up. They do hit it. And just like Azza, just like him, picks up 1. They're going to pick up a double kill here. A fantastic look for the jungler and phenomenal play from Mike.
Hey, Supersonic Blow, maybe that is Panda Cat over there on an ult, because
you know,
those kind of survival instincts on an Optimus are priceless. That was such good play from Be Like Mike to buy time in order for just like Azza to arrive, and just like Azza doing the perfect cleanup assassin job, picking up that double kill, using the Tsukuyomi kit perfectly to get in the poke, then engage from a distance. Really, really solid play, really solid map sense as well there from just like Azza. Great team coordination to bait out the gank and carry on, survive, give your teammate long enough to get there. Just phenomenal stuff from Team Toxic.
Really. The thing for me as well is the fact that, oh, hang that a sec, Dueling Dragons comes out, Cheeto gets pulled back into the tower line, but no much more will come from that, is the fact that now that Mike has got this RC online, they have no problem boxing. They were at Ehete's tower line when that whole thing started. They ran the whole lane down and then could afford to turn around with that sustain. I was going to ask, like, how long of a clock was Neath on? Kind of already been answered by how that's gone just now.
I think it's going to change a little bit again once this Transcendence gets stacked, because then you're looking at a point where Neath just gets to clear the wave with one button. But the auto boxing is always just, oh god, that hurts.
Yeah, Piercing Moonlight does a lot of damage. Azza, though, is fairly high and dry at this point in time. Beats have been forced to the Neath stun. There is some support coming in, but another fantastic landfall there. Does huge damage, but meanwhile, this Tiamat just walks in and says, nah, I'll fight you. Cheetos come around the back between Tier 1 and Tier 2 to try and cut him off. But Download Later will be able to get on out of there. That fully stacked Thebes paying dividends already.
Exactly, and this is what we were talking about earlier. Thebes giving you that ability to brawl a little bit earlier means that these kind of exchanges can be taken by a Download Later, whereas if Cheeto had been caught in the same position, it's possible that Cheeto dies there. However, I think the thing to really comment on for me was TerraTimzo's confidence in stepping up. You normally think of these mid lane mages as feeling a little bit too squishy in this stage of the game and not necessarily having the burst to be able to step in like that and bail out a teammate, but TerraTimzo just ran at them and really was able to lay down the hurt and turn around that skirmish where it looked like just like Azza was dead to rights.
Yeah, very impressive play there, just using that Tiamat passive, that increased damage reduction when you're on all fours going in. Beautifully played there to see that. And like you said, just recognizing that in that situation, either both go in and can potentially survive or one of them's dying. So it's really nice to see from Team Toxic this kind of level of play, and they have now battled back. They've got themselves about a 1,000 gold lead here, and with the second item starting to get finished, Azza now a full Blood Forge. I'm expecting to see them look for a pull here on the Gold Fury, but it's actually Ehete who are starting it off first. Let's see if Team Toxic can notice this. I don't know if they got the damage. It's only at half health right now. Terra is on in, looking to try and put some damage out, and it's Team Toxic who come in and steal it away. Now looking at the health bar, Zats takes down one, but Azza answers back immediately in turn. That Blood Forge passive now, more movement speed, more health, more potential to chase down kills, but everyone from Ehete has scattered like the ruins of that Gold Fury fight.
There's the thing to cut there, I suppose, is the lack of burn on the objective, allowing there for Team Toxic to have time to come.
Hello?
Wow.
Okay. That happened. Yeah, that happened. I don't know what happened, but it happened.
I suppose to briefly comment on what happened over here on the solo lane, Sir Kazvet probably felt a lot safer coming over here and proxying between the towers, because you knew that Pink Unicorn was over on the Gold Fury, which means that the enemy jungler isn't going to come and surprise you between towers. You've got a lot more safety to fight. What surprised me more is that the Scottish play was caught out and annihilated between those two towers, because normally you'd think you're in a position to take that kind of fight if it's on your own territory. Now thinking back to the Gold Fury fight, Ehete 2 didn't have the burn to get through it, which gave Team Toxic time to get there. And as a god like Tsukuyomi, who has a button that just says, I'm on top of you now, that's so helpful, because it means your targets have been softened up from the objective that they're fighting on, and it meant you were able to get into the back, disrupt, lay down even more damage. And I didn't see what it was that did the killing blow on the Gold Fury. It almost doesn't matter at this stage, because the secure wasn't there, and you really, if you're a Ehete 2 and you're going to try and sneak this objective, you need to be ready on that secure button if you've got one, or have someone ready to zone, because you can't be letting objectives fall away from you like that in a game that you're already down in.
I definitely agree. I liked the call to go for that Gold Fury, but without the ward vision. For me, the big one is that ward vision to know if you need someone to step up. It was an all or nothing, and unfortunately just came up a nothing this time. Judas with a nice ward. Spots out the rotation from Azza, so it will just be the 1v1 situation. And now it's a level and a half lead looking for Team Toxic here over in this duo lane. As once again, Ehete go ahead and start up an objective. Again, it goes down to about half. And now Team Toxic members start showing up. This time, though, the Neath Ultimate does dissuade one member through as the Emoji ult as well comes through. They've still picked this up. Dueling Dragons is there, but Team Toxic steal away another objective. And now download later will fall down now to Azza, who is starting to get to a critical mass here. 5-1-0. Pyromancer stolen, stealing away another kill under this tier 2 tower. I'm glad we haven't been saying the Guan Yu's name, because I don't think that Ehete can be cursed any more than they're already at.
Not only that, but if you're a fan of Team Toxic and you liked how the first verse went, you know all the words to the second verse here. Step up, steal an objective, kill over in the solo lane. It's a game plan that works for Team Toxic, and they're really now leaning on this to build up a bit of a lead, and it looks like the Scottish player is going to get caught out once again, using that cavalry charge to get away, but the Riptide is perfect.
Absolutely beautiful. It's a shame there was no one else nearby, but Team Toxic will just have to settle for the tier 1 tower instead. As now we can see Be Like Mike, more like Be Like Panda Cat, again with another reference to it, with the Blink second relic. Who needs Aegis? You're gonna die anyway. May as well go out in a blaze of glory, eh?
I kind of love it on Artemis as well. There's been times in Smite's life, I didn't want to say metas because it is still an off-meta pick, but where Artemis Jungle feels like a useful pick in the game. And
you disgust
now
me.
the Caledonian Boar has better AI. Blink Tusky is an engaged threat, and once you've got that crit online, you can play burst. I kind of like.
Oh, Judas! Oh, hey, Judas, you are in a lot of trouble here, getting run down by Hazvest and Azza. The moment they showed up, all the focus went on them. They were just the only one in that spot, and now with this Fury up, both these carries are just taking this one down. Everyone else is on zone duty. Big ults coming through, and again on the backline, Kezvet straight on into Descent into Madness here, pushing everyone out of the way. They drop off the Gold Fury just to look for more kills, and now that they've secured this Gold Fury pit, now they will go ahead, turn and burn. Zats is looking for the steal away, and they get it! Talk about an encore performance there. Ehete saw how to do it and sneak it away. Zats, you should not have been able to get away with that, but credit where credit is due.
Sometimes you can learn to play music just by watching someone else do it, and it seems like Ehete 2 did the same thing with Smite here. Zats stepping up and taking a leaf from Team Toxic's book and picking up that Gold Fury is going to be useful, but the map is still very much in the favor of Team Toxic. They might have lost out on that objective, but they cleared out that tier 1 in mid, and the tier 1 in solo is already down too, so this map is a lot more open. And we've already seen from Team Toxic, they're not afraid of stepping up to make these invades either. So for Ehete 2, this game is slipping into a point where it becomes a lot harder for you to catch up because all of your farm now becomes under threat from Team Toxic. It's going to be on them to respond, take control of this jungle a little bit more, try and find pushing waves where they can, because these kind of map states can very quickly turn into losing games.
They certainly can. And Cheeto here, just want to point out an interesting path on the build. Fully upgraded relics at level 12, which is very nice to see for supports, but Chronos Pendant, second item. Talk to me about that if we can, just to see as Azza runs down the Scottish play once more. Get out with the ult, hopefully, unless they want to go ahead and use that, but they won't instead. Mid lane is actually where a lot of the action is right now. Cheeto trying to just deal with this tier 1 tower siege. Will not be successful, but like I said, Chronos Pendant second item, it feels like they're very... Oh, never mind, it's the Blink Artemis going on in. I still want to ask the question, but I'm not going to get the chance to do so. Shell comes out, looking to try and get away, but Kezvet is here, and Kezvet will pick up the kill. Azza runs down the jungler in their own jungle at this point, and the Scottish players once again still being hounded and harassed again, just look at how far up these members are pushing.
Okay. Where did Kesvet come from? Because that's not solo side of the map where they appeared from to run down the team. But also, you can see the level of confidence that Team Toxic are playing just from one tiny interaction in that team fight, which is where, just like Azza used the beads to cleanse the slow from Taolu Assault that was still lingering to be able to catch up with the Scottish play and get the kill. Now, that's such a, I don't think I'm going to need these defensively kind of play. Better off just getting an extra kill into my back pocket. It shows exactly the kind of state the Team Toxic in this game is in, and I think that's, it's cocky, and I think it's a thing that Ehete 2 needs to now take note of, is that there are no beads on just like Azza, but it also it's so revealing about where we are right now in this match.
Yeah, the fact that you're beading these slows, not to get away, but to chase down kills, to go for it more, and you don't feel concerned about it. I mean, at level 18, at 20 minutes into this game, they have a 3-level lead on most members of the team, or a 2-level to 5-level lead across the board. And with all these items online, you've got a double lifesteal in Bloodforger and Serrated Edge. Now more pen with the Brawler's Beatstick. I'm not sure who's supposed to deal with this.
It's going to be really difficult. And as I sort of alluded to in the draft, Maui doesn't have the best backline peel. The best peel tool really that Maui has is the teleport. I always call it Lantern because I'm used to Thresh, who has a very similar ability, but that
it's
ability
fish.
to walk to Maui. But the Maui doesn't necessarily play in a way that allows him to run away and drop that for you to go to, because so often Maui is stepping up, getting a hook, stepping up, using landfall. And so anytime that's used, it's only to re-engage, and it means that now the backline is really a risk of falling to just like Azza, who, as you say, there's no one to really deal with just how fed the Tsukuyomi is.
And now, I don't mind the play coming through from Ehete. They're just trying to split the map, push up, so not every lane is losing, but they lose tier 2 on the left for a tier 1 on the right. They lose out on Oni Fury as well, meaning that these next waves coming through are going to push even harder. And this gold lead is just slowly encroaching onto that 10,000 gold mark. 8,500 now. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we're done, it'll get more as a big landfall comes on through, but it only really pulls in the front line. Everyone else is still tanking up the tower, and it's doing good work, but no one can afford to deal with Kesvet, who peels out for just like Azza, and it works out well. The Scottish Blade tries to make a loop around, turnaround play, but everyone else is far too far to take any heat of that. Now we could be looking at a mid-Phoenix siege here at the 22-minute mark here coming through. Out comes the Frenzy, and that Phoenix has melted already.
It was fantastic play from Team Toxic, grouping up, playing that Deathball style. I think if, again, thinking about moments in team fights that are indicative of the state of the game that we're in, that was an incredible landfall. And in an even game state, that feels like the kind of thing that turns a fight around. But one of the players that got picked up there was the mid laner, Timzor, and Timzor, instead of going, oh, I need to get out, I need to use my defensive relics, use the Tiamat leap to go forward and just head deeper into the fight and rely on just how far ahead they are in their build and the kind of burst they have, and worked out really well for Team Toxic because they were able to push through, get that mid-Phoenix, and now they're over on the other side of the map, clearing out this tower too. There's even more gold going into their pockets. This is a runaway train of a lead at this point.
It certainly feels like it. No breaks available. Team Toxic as well. Running out on the Fire Giant. Should be respawning in about a minute or so. But this is also the thing as well. Is now Fire Giant, the buff lasts until Fire Giant spawns. If they want to use the last 30 seconds of it to absolutely dominate the Fire Giant pit, I wouldn't be surprised if Ehete 2 can't afford to do so. But right now, all 5 of them are here. They're looking for a pick. They see Mike that's there, but they'll run in straight into Azza. This is the best chance they've got. It's 5v2, and they take down Azza. It's a great pick for them and a big shutdown. They will look for Mike at this point in time. Does have the ultimate available, and they're just all in committing on for him at this point. But he's back to safety.
Oh, to cleanse out the stun there from Guan Yu, because the beads were already down at that point. I thought that was a great chance to get a pick, but now the Descent into Madness pushing the team away. And unless they can stick around this Guan Yu for the healing, this whole bit of territory around the Fire Giant pit could just be lost here by that great use of the ult there from Sir Kesvet. And yeah, it looks like that was what they were able to do. I don't love this retreat here from Ehete too. You've got the man advantage and you've got the healer. I think you can possibly step up into this one.
It's one that I wouldn't have wanted to. Let me try that again. It's one that
cool and it goes wrong, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I looked at and thought if they back off completely, I wouldn't have been surprised if Team Toxic try and pull a Fire Giant and bait them in anyway. But instead, they only go for the Pyromancer, so that's at least something. And they do put that dent back down to technically not a 10,000 gold lead, but even so, that shutdown is the biggest thing to take away from it. That also now puts Pink in a very good spot. They've got their full Heartseeker now. But they're still trying to play catch-up on everyone else. 2 level 20s coming through. A full Deathbringer on the side like Be Like Mike. There are a lot of things that just say Team Toxic has the initial advantage at this point.
Absolutely. And not just the full Deathbringer, right? We're looking at a Deathbringer and completed Executioner over where Judas Priestley is on the build. And that's such a huge advantage. That shows you just how far ahead this Artemis is, economy-wise. And then the other big advantage to talk about here is, in terms of objective play, 2 Runic Bombs on the side of Team Toxic, which means that the next time they push onto a Phoenix, they've got such a huge ability to influence those sieges that it's going to be much harder for Ehete 2 to hang on and defend their base.
Well, they bought themselves a little bit of time with a pick-off of Azza, but unfortunately now that has fallen to nothing as the next Fire Giant does go down. We are going to see a little bit more. It buys Ehete 2 a little bit of time to get some key items online. The Divine Ruin also going to be very nice. The Spirit's Robe, the Breastplate of Regrowth comes through as well. Now they've got to try and defend on these sieges. It's going to be difficult for them here. We are going to see the 4-1 split. Azza more than comfortable and happy to split push off. Will 1v1 anyone. Mike gets pulled into the tower line, though. And that landfall there marks the gravestone. A fantastic pick off here. And now it's all on for the engage. Azza's round the back with the piercing moonlight. And a great River's Rebuke cuts off the pathway. Azza takes down Pink in one foul swoop. Zats is trying to put out damage, but everyone on the side of Ehete 2 just can't put damage into Kesvet at this point in time. Now they're going to try and turn this one around as Be Like Azza is just pushing forward the whole time. Without their ADC, this Phoenix takes a while, but it still falls.
And the mid lane Phoenix falls as well, so you've got 2 waves of fire minions pushing back in. I thought that was going to be a game-turning fight for Ehete 2. The pick onto Be Like Mike was huge. The re-engage I thought was really well handled by both of their frontliners. But then the River's Rebuke, with the piercing moonlight, Team Toxic were just able to turn the momentum back around onto Ehete 2, and with Kasvet pushing down, keeping the backliners out, stopping them from pouring damage into the backline of Team Toxic, that fight was absolutely changed. For any kind of wind was taken out of Ehete 2's sails, and now with 2 Phoenixes down, this game becomes a lot harder to stay in. I'm a little bit surprised that Team Toxic have pulled so far back and are playing this as thoroughly as they are, but given how far ahead they are and the way they've been able to win every team fight, I'm not sure you can really criticize how they've been playing these sieges too much. They've looked very successful on both of them. They've only lost a member on each, and often that's taken a lot of commitment from Ehete 2. So playing now to just keep your lead intact, try not to throw anything away. I don't hate it, but I would have loved to have seen a little bit more aggression at the end of that one.
It could have been something, but at the same time, like you said, it's a conservative play. They're not gonna just throw the whole lead away for them, because those picks still mean a lot in terms of the gold lead. It buys more time for Ehete 2, so Be Like Mike gets back up. I don't know. I'd have to check on things. I think they had beads up for the pull coming in from Maui, and just didn't beat it and went for the ult and took too much damage. Either way, it goes to, like you said, that high execution point for Maui. These pulls have been what's winning these team fights. And people on Team Toxic just haven't respected it. They have to respect it on these Phoenix sieges, because if they don't, well, you just lose your ADC immediately in the engagement. But with 1 Phoenix left, it actually looks like Team Toxic are more interested on looking for a pick. They do find the Guan Yu, but that is not going to... Never mind, the Riptide pulls them back in, but no one else is around. So unfortunately, TimZor will not be picking up another kill. This does surprise me, though, that Team Toxic, with this Fire Giant in hand, they had about a minute on it. They didn't push up left lane. They just, now let's go for the next Fire Giant. Is that just respect for Ehete 2? Too much respect for them? Or not feeling confident?
I feel like at this stage of the game, it's a little bit too much respect, although the next Fire Giant that spawns is an enhanced Fire Giant, and perhaps you don't want to risk giving that up at all. But I think there's a point where you have to be confident in your ability to win the game, and Team Toxic, for me, really lost an opportunity of at least putting pressure down on that left-hand side of the map, as you said. They are going to be in a really strong position for this enhanced Fire Giant fight, and that's probably going to be the thing that reaches us to the end point of game 1. But I do think they've dragged us out a little bit too much, and actually the burn coming down this Fire Giant, I don't think it's going to hit enhanced Fire Giant by the time they finish it.
Doesn't look like it. They might try and hold on to it. They might try and hold on to it, though, but they've got to be careful. Ehete 2 not necessarily hovering around for 2 seconds.
Missed, yeah.
TimZor, you couldn't wait 2 seconds. I'm not gonna say it's a misplay. You're still winning the game, but at the same time, you're not winning it as hard as you could be.
Right. They didn't need EFG to win the game at this point. I agree.
It's just a flex.
But I feel like if you're playing as carefully as they are at this point, that's
you may as well
throwing value.
Just a little bit now, as Mid Phoenix once again is there, but it was immediately taken down. And it's just like him to go ahead and split push this down, and Ehete 2 just can't find a gripping point. Big landfall again, picks up 2, but it's just not enough damage. Guan Yu's health bar is gone. Download later, the first to fall again in this fight, and with that, the descent into madness will descend onto the base. Team Toxic just putting everything they can into this Phoenix, or the Titan, I should say. Memphis got fairly low there. Somehow, TimZor comes away with picking up Pig Unicorn as they're retreating. With the health bars low, it doesn't matter. They've got a healer. As long as they can keep in that base, that Titan will fall. And that is game 1 going to Team Toxic.
Really, really nicely played there at the end. And playing around the tools that were available to Ehete 2 as well. Commented on the landfall that came out. We've seen a lot of good landfalls this game, but I feel like as soon as that landfall came out, the trigger was pulled on the Caledonian Boar, and as the Artemis, you don't get thrown, you do get a stun onto the backline, and we saw how much damage this Artemis was laying down in fights. Really, really good stuff from Team Toxic. They're able to pull up a pretty convincing win there. I feel like there's a lot of questions still around the macro play of this team, and pushing a lead to turn it into a win. But for setting up a game 1, for showing what you're here to do, I think that was a really, really good showing from them.
Agreed. And it does feel like it's sort of this is the team that sits at the top of this division. So you've got that sort of air of, we can just out-farm you a little bit better, out-pressure you a little bit better. And it's all those little things that come about. Like, sure, Mike went and picked Artemis, but as soon as they got that sustain online, it's just turn the screw. And now, yeah, the Neath's got the global pressure. The Neath ult never really felt like it did too much for them. So if you're on Team Ehete 2, where do you look for game 2? Is it a complete draft change? Is it a playstyle change? What would you be going into this with?
I'd be looking at perhaps drafting something that's a little bit easier to play. I thought that download later looked good on the Maui, so I don't necessarily know that needs to change, but I'd like to see some more reliable lockdown, be able to put yourself in a situation where you can actually get some picks, convert good ganks into easy picks for your team. And then that lockdown later in the game, when you're less in a pick phase, it's still pretty useful in a team fight as well. If you can lock down this backline, force their relics, force their ultimates, and put your team in a position where they can soften the backline up, get some wins in these fights, because we didn't see a lot of purchase, as you said. There was no real gripping point, and that's revealed for me in the score lines of a lot of these players. Neither frontliner died on the side of Team Toxic. You've got 1 death on both of the main backliners. And that means that it wasn't really ever a fair exchange. And I think if you can get some good lockdown, you can start to threaten some of the key pieces in these team fights and maybe then turn them around into a winning position. So that's what I'd like to see, something just a little bit easier to execute on.
All right, well, we'll have to see whether or not that comes to fruition in Game 2. We're going to go ahead and get that all ready and set up for you. But for now, we got a quick break, so go get yourself some water. Team Toxic and Ehete took 31 minutes to break down that Titan for Ehete. Team Toxic now looking to run it back in 2. We saw and we spoke about at the end of that there, it just felt like Team Toxic were a little bit better, but Ehete got some things to try and go ahead and improve on this draft phase. Supersonic Blow once again joined by Haunting. I guess the first question then is, if it is going to be a bit of a draft change, what would you like? What's the biggest one that you want to see a difference in? For me, it's the Kleedner.
Right. I think that the Kleedner just doesn't provide you with enough utility, and I think that's a really good thing to point out. And I think there's a lot of things that you can talk about with that draft, but ordinarily when we talk about the way that you change a draft in Smite or any MOBA where you have this ability to draft Supersonic Blur is what do you want to ban from game number 1? But I don't think there was anything on the side of Team Toxic that was so run away with the game that it's notably ban worthy, because the runaway player was just like Azza on the Tsukuyomi, and you get the impression that that would happen regardless of which assassin was being played. So it turns to what do you want to see, just like or what do you want to see Ehete 2 pick? And I think what we should be looking at is an assassin that can match what's going on with Tsukuyomi. No one else quite plays like that, but you can look at assassins that provide a lot more utility. Maybe you want something team fighting. You take a Hunbats for that Fear No Evil ultimate. Or maybe you want something that's got a little bit more lockdown for individual ganks, looking for something with a stun in the kit or a root, maybe like the Raven, just to get you through those early levels, get the root out from the 10-hand Shadow Fist, lock someone down that way, help out a lot. I also think potentially looking at something that is a little bit more reliable on the side of the solo lane. I know it's a little bit difficult where the meta is right now. Guan Yu's a very strong pick, but Guan Yu also has to commit a lot to be able to get the stun out. So maybe you look at something like a Tyr or Achilles where you've got your CC and a regular ability. Those kind of things are the things that I want to see them look at. I don't think I'd necessarily change anything about the bans. I think the Thor Naja ban were really sensible heading into that game because you saw how much of it fell down to jungle versus jungle. But the argument, I suppose, against banning them is you're on the order side now. So you could ban 3 problematic picks and maybe pick Thor up for yourselves as first pick, for instance.
It seems to be true. And like you said, order side is going to be Ehete 2. Team Toxic will be on the Chaos side. And does that necessarily change things up? I know that you said that what we were looking at, but we saw the first almost all 6 bans were assassins. It was Mercury, there was Ao Guang, and who was the last one originally for Team Toxic again?
Was banned by Team Toxic.
It was Suter, that's the one.
And then Agni was banned
pronunciations. Alright. It looks like it is going to be that Suter ban again. So I've missed casting with you. Your Nordic pronunciations, they give me life. They spark joy, as it were.
And I wonder if this is thank you, Blur. I wonder if it's even worth banning here for the order side, because we've talked about it a lot before the cast. It's a real lane god, and if you've got something that can fight it in lane, maybe you let it go. But I find the Thor ban perhaps indicative that you don't necessarily trust your own jungler to play Thor, because you can leave it up to be first pick yourselves. And that to me seems like a real power pick in this meta. But without the Naja ban, perhaps that's what Naja banned here. So all of the bans are the same, just in different orders.
It is, though. It is also a different order team, but they are going to go on ahead and hover the Maui right now. And I think this Maui, perfect, absolutely perfect. Download later is the reason almost every kill happened for this team. So absolutely think that it's justified of its first pick here. Question is, what do Chaos go ahead and respond with? Are they going to go ahead and run things back, or are they going to take things away? I personally love this idea. What we ended up seeing last time was this Guan Yu didn't get a whole lot. Take it away and show them how it's done.
The other thing here is the Maui, although good for setting up kills in last game, Blur didn't do a whole lot to peel for the backline. And granted, that's just the nature of the God's kit and the dive that was drafted against the Ehete 2. But the Guan Yu is a god that, unless you're committing the ultimate, relatively easy to peel. And I say that with a decent amount of salt on it.
To become the Jade Emperor.
Guan Yu now has less to fear about when it comes to diving because Maui is not necessarily going to be the strongest. It's not like there's a Khepri there, for instance, peeling away this Guan Yu, which means that the dive coming out should be a lot better. Yu Huang, I kind of again, wasn't convinced in the last game that it was necessarily the best, but given that you don't have the best peel coming from your support, having someone who's really quite safe with the 3 that Yu Huang has, it's a good idea, and I'd like to see a similarly safe hunter, maybe even fall back to something like the Jingwei in this game.
Yeah. One thing I would like from Zats is a slightly different build. We never really got to touch on it, but it just didn't quite mesh with how the game was going, and Fenrir now locked in. This was banned away in game number 1, as was the Awilish, but I really like this Fenrir pick. This, again, kind of hampers that idea. Azza played phenomenally on the first god. Now they're on a god whose entire goal is to do is to pick people up and put them in a bad spot.
And Fenrir is so strong right now as well. I remember the first couple of weeks of year 10, this god was an absolute menace, and I saw lots of calls for just taking anything that was good about this god and running into the ground. I don't think this god has seen a good amount of nerfs yet, and I think this god is still in a really, really strong place. So I love seeing the Fenrir pick up. I think the utility that Fenrir offers to a team, Ragnarok is still a really strong ultimate, and Brutalize is great in the early, so you've got so much potential to get snowballing on this god. But even if you don't necessarily snowball, you can build it a lot tankier, run in, do your Ragnarok thing, and then set up your backline for success. So this is a god that really doesn't need to be feast or famine at all.
It certainly doesn't. And I mentioned the Guan Yu. I was okay with taking it away. It does a lot of good things for this team. The Neath, though, Mike, that's just disrespectful. Judas doesn't need the disrespect on this. You don't want to hear what he's saying in production is right now.
and this shows the personal rivalry between these two players to pick up what you played in the last game and say anything you can do, I can do better. I hope that this lights a fire under Judas Priestley and that this becomes a blood-soaked lane over there in the duo lane, and this Kronos just gets to soak up all of the kills just to make up for this
God of the
hunt in the draft phase. He's exactly.
It makes sense. It could, but looking at the side for Ehete, aside from Maui, none of these are what you would consider tanks. Like the Hades sure comes in and is tanky, but that is not the same thing. And now with the set as well, kind of feels very much like a Tsukuyomi. Run in, pop the ult, decimate the entire team's backline. But hold on a second here. With Tiamat already locked in, Baron Samedi comes on out to liven up the party. Is that Baron's support?
I have to think that this is Baron's support because I think maybe I don't know. I was gonna say something as a universal truth within Smite, and then I don't know if it's necessarily true. I'd much rather see Baron support and Guan Yu solo than the other way around.
I would agree with you there. I think the Baron support holds a lot more benefits for it. Sure, it's not the whole Tablet of Destiny stacking stuff, but with the nerfs, it's not as potent a thing and not much to worry about. And if you want that heal and life of the party to be around, you got to be where the party is. And that is in game 2. And hopefully it is Baron Samedi support. At least we do either way. Also hoping this might go to game 3, but we'll have to find out here in game 2. Ehete 2 on Order's side, and Team Toxic taking that right side on your screen's UI. And it is going to be Baron's support.
I love to see Baron support. It's fallen out of favor a little bit, but I feel like with the changes coming next patch, this is a god that could take a little bit of a step up as well. I think Barons are super fun mage to play, and offers a decent amount of support. You get a big slow into a root, you've got a really nice heal that cleanses slows and gives your teammates some movement speed, and then Life of the Party is a reasonably good setup tool. Plus, you do get to take advantage of a really high mitigation level build with the way that Lono's mask has been changed, and then presumably we're going to see a prophetic cloak first item here as well.
It will do a lot of good work, and then that stacks with the healing as well. If you have the lower your HP is, the more you're going to get back. There's a lot of things there that will be very, very pertinent for these two gods. But I think important to note is, unlike last game, Asa's opted for this Eye of the Jungle versus the clear. Is that just that Fenrir's clear is good enough, or would they prefer the sustain?
It's a little bit of both. You like the sustain because you're looking to get active early. And
wow!
Wow. Like I said, Brutalize, really strong in the early game. But the other side of this is that Fenrir likes attack speed. I'm a little bit surprised we didn't see it on Set. Your early clear gets helped a lot by Bluestone, but Set's another god that likes attack speed too. But Fenrir loves having attack speed, especially with the changes that were made to Seething Howl. So now that you've got the extra power and the lifesteal, having that extra attack speed on your basics means that Fenrir just kind of has the whole package now. Huge utility in the ult, great ability scaling damage with Brutalize, and now incredible auto attacks too. This god's in a really sick place, and having the build path available to do it as well, just being reasonably good, really adds up to such a formula for success right now.
And talking of success, Asa creeping around in the jungle with this dual lane pressure for Team Toxic. It's a little harder to want to go on over to gank, but already as well, there is a full ward out. Download actually starting here with 2 wards just to pop them out for that, but in the mid lane, Pink Unicorn going ahead, just jumping on in with Zat, picks up first blood. And so far, game number 2 is going in a similar fashion here. Cheeto gets pulled in, rooted in place, but the heal is good enough. And unfortunately, I do not know whether or not that was stolen, but onto the solar swing goes the later. But they've gone and got themselves in a bit of trouble here. Asa makes the rotation, and they will eat a fair bit of poke for their troubles there.
Nice rotation there over here by Pink Unicorn, splitting the map in half, and that's a lot of damage coming down onto the Guan Yu. And that's what I want to see, Blair, from these junglers. I think a lot of the time in Smite, we expect our junglers to show up when we're being ganked, and oftentimes that means you're sacrificing something elsewhere on the map. So by splitting the map like that, as Pink Unicorn does, they're actually helping out their solo lane a lot, and figuring that in this matchup, they're either not going to invest resources in duo because they expect it to either survive and hold out, or like they want to run and win through their solo lane. And with the way that Hades plays, I think you do want to get him ahead early so they can get to the point where he can threaten a backline from that 15-minute mark instead of letting him have to scale at the same speed as the enemy solo laner. So I do like this as a decision from Pink Unicorn.
I gotta agree with you on this point, as Cheeto is trying to get fairly cheeky here. Actually steals away the buff as well. That's disgusting. Cheeky Cheeto there. Absolutely awful to see. Well, depends whether or not your team like Team Toxic or not. I'm personally just here for good Smite, and that is a very cheeky, fun little play to see. But like you said, on the idea of getting this Hades big, it's finding that balance. Every time you see the gank and it doesn't happen, that's time that you're stripping away or sharing farm, and you didn't get anything off of that. So Kazvet, yes, goes low and has to teleport back out of lane, but I feel like they were expecting that. And then we saw a little bit from our Eye in the Sky perspective, both Timzor and Azra were also on the way over if they look to try and press their luck with an invade.
Right, and that's really the difficult thing here, because I feel like as a jungler playing into an enemy god like Guan Yu, you really want to be looking for these invades. Guan Yu, low mana pool, has to use a lot of abilities to clear the lane. Invading away that blue is often a really good idea against a god like Guan Yu, so it's heads up from teammates like Asa and Terra Timzor to be able to cover that lane, try and help their fellow teammate out and secure that blue buff, because without it, Sir Kazvet's going to be in a world of trouble.
And for now, we are going to see Azza looking at a potential rotation. Keep an eye on Pink Unicorn. They are also here. Life of the party, though. Not too good for them, but it was all to go ahead and get the Ragnarok coming on through. Unfortunately, only picks up one. The Wild Hunt is good as well to dissuade more, and this is all just buying time for Pink Unicorn to try and put down damage, but Judas is the one to find the kill. They can now keep on chasing down. World Weaver was used, but it doesn't matter. It dissuades nothing at this point. 3-0 currently. Trying to make that a 4th if possible. The pull is there. Be Like Mike might just be in some trouble now. On the other side of the map, Hazvest finds a solo kill against the Hades. If Priest isn't careful, they're going to end up going down as well. A 2-for-1 across the map is a very explosive 5-minute mark for the game.
I really like that for Ehete 2. The solo kill over in solo lane sucks for you, but getting some more gold and experience into the back pocket of Pink Unicorn, who has been really proactive early on this set. I really like seeing what they're willing to do on this set, but also getting Judas Priestley ahead. We saw what happened in the last game when when Be Like Mike got that assy on Artemis and was able to pull ahead in the lead. This time, Judas Priestley able to stay not only even, but I think get a small lead in this lane gold-wise is really important for Judas, especially because I think Konos is a god that really sucks to 1v1 as the game goes on. This god feels really dangerous if you can play confidently and you've got a bit of a lead. And I think if we can get that heading into the late game, bring some of that power into this mid, into these skirmishes, it's going to be really beneficial for Ehete 2.
Oh boy, Priestley going for a 1v1 versus Mike. Just gonna land the autos for that, so ends up taking a little bit more damage than they had intended here. And now this is just the ADC diff here coming into play. Be Like Mike goes ahead and takes down Judas there in the 1v1, both with RC here, so no difference in builds. And that just goes to show that the sustain is so dangerous here this early on.
It really is. I would have liked to have seen Judas try and press the 4 button, try and get out of that with the Wild Hunt ultimate, maybe get the beads in exchange, something along those lines. But I also respect knowing, hey, I'd actually rather have that when I've got an opportunity to benefit from it properly. It's a difficult decision because I don't think anyone would be expecting Be Like Mike to play up that far, because that was a really aggressive play from the Neath to swing round and take that and play almost like an assassin.
Very
really good confidence, and I think that's going to show up as the game goes on if Be Like Mike is going to be able to play like that in the team fights. But for Judas right now, it really sucks because they are being suffocated from farm.
They are. Life of the party in mid and Landfall were both expelled. Timzor, though, is incredibly low, gets taken down. Mike finds a snipe right on into Pink Unicorn, and Solar Swing gets most of Dancer out of trouble, but a fantastic wrap it up cleans up that last pick there. 2-for-1 in favor of Team Toxic. They've answered it back, and they've closed this gold lead to barely 600.
And for just like Azure getting that assist, it doesn't get you on the board kills-wise, but it does help you keep pace with Pink Unicorn, who has been doing the jungler thing and setting the tempo for this game, just like Azure on the tempo-setting pick as well. So you really need to try and right the ship here if you're just like Azure. On the other hand, though, I think if there's a real takeaway that you want to get from that fight, it's that your mid laner didn't fall for Ehete 2. Not losing Zats in that exchange when a lot was starting to fall apart on the back end of that fight. That's really important because that's who was behind for a lot of game number 1, able to be in a position where now you're a level and a half up on this Tiamat, and as Yu Huang, playing quite a similar role, I think, to the Chernobog when this, or not Chernobog, sorry, Kernanos. When this god gets ahead, he's hard to fight into, and I like that for Zats, getting that lead, forcing Terra Timzor to not be able to be the kind of threat that they were in game number 1. This is looking good for Ehete 2.
Certainly is, and keep an eye on Pink Unicorn over on the solo side again. Kazvat is low, and that's what the call for this Hades was doing, looking to try and cut off the retreat. They will find a call for it, but out with the horn shot as well, just to get those cooldowns lower means the Kazvat gets to dash on away. Great use of the shards there.
And that's one of those things that really shows the level of time, I suppose, and experience put in with this new season. Because I think one of the things we're still seeing is people are not necessarily knowing when to use those shards as best as possible. There's an element to sometimes you should just press buttons to make sure you're not going to die, but using the horn shard specifically, because I think of that so much as like an offensive shard. You're using that to get extra utility out of your abilities, get another rotation down in a fight, but using that to get the dash back up so that you survive, that's really heads up.
Really, really nice to see. And on the other side of things, Unicorn doesn't go ahead and pop their winged shard. Maybe the extra attack speed and movement speed lets them chase down. Maybe they get a kill there. But that's all shoulda, couldas, and wouldas now, as we are going to go ahead and see Azza make a rotation over this side. The ward is pinged out that it is available. But even so, Azza has been somewhat quiet here this game. But build-wise, it looks like they're going the same kind of build. It's that Jotuns, and uh-oh, that's your jump! That's a very unfortunate spot, so when in doubt, we're gonna ult out, but they're just gonna get ulted right back in place. They will get the lifesteal up, but there is just too much damage.
I really don't like that beats there, but I do like that dive from Pink Unicorn, and just stepping out of the tower line in time for the World Weaver 2. Love to see that. Hate to see that.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, you love to see some things, hate to see others. That's the up, down, Mary Poppins, and look at Azza. You're gonna go straight for it, but leashed right away by Download Later. And there's one thing you could say about Download Later, they have a phenomenal proclivity for finding the targets when they absolutely have to with this fish hook.
There's some clutch ability usage from Download Later. It's like their proficiency goes up the harder the timing is, and it's paid off really nicely for Ehete too. Love the proactivity from Pink Unicorn. I'm really sad to see that they just got punished on the back end of it by just like Azza, who has been slowly keeping up with this set, and I think that's really important to do because Set is such a snowbally god. This god gets a lead, he's gonna rip shreds through your backline, but just like Azza, been keeping tabs on where Pink Unicorn has been as this game has progressed, and it's helped Team Toxic stay in this a little bit more than I thought. I hadn't been checking the gold lead, to be honest with you. Normally I'm much better at doing that. I felt like this game had been in Ehete 2's favor for a lot longer than it had, and now we're actually looking at a lead for Team Toxic. A small one, but a lead nonetheless.
Uh-oh, Timzor caught out with a beautiful root force to beads. Does not take enough damage from the tick. 27 around on the dot there, so an unfortunate situation. And now the rest of the cavalry is here. All sans the Guan Yu, be like Mike, takes the kill. And again, this is what that Neath wanted to bring in game one, where the rest of the team locks down a target, and that's just the cherry on top. Without that lockdown, it wasn't available. So now we're seeing, in a strange turn of events, Mike is still holding a level lead here against Judas.
But I think it's that participation that's coming out in these kills. Also 3 kills to their own name as well. Be like Mike in a very strong position and being able to exert pressure over the map. It's really, really not where you want to be as an opposing ADC, and that's a huge lead now over in this duo lane. This is a really, really tough picture. Because the thing is, in ADC, you also aren't ever really called on to leave this lane. They just want you to get to level 20 and full build as quickly as possible. And for Be Like Mike, that's going to be pretty soon at this point.
They're slowly running it up. I wouldn't be surprised if, honestly, Mike just runs the exact same build, just different character, because it worked out for them. It's kept them with good pressure as Cheeto starts trying to push out a little bit of this lane. We've not seen anyone flirt over towards the Gold Fury side, but I have a feeling that once we see the dominance online for Mike, we might be able to see that. And if you are Ehete 2, are you concerned about this slight level lead? Are you okay to fight into it? What would your calls be here?
I think you need to commit a lot more if you are going to fight into it, because we have seen the damage this Neath can do, at least in boxing. The thing is, though, this Neath doesn't really have any... no penetration online, so to speak, at this point. But also, this is a lower power build in terms of physical power. So it's not like the build last time where you risk getting burst down necessarily by the Neath. It's very odd to see a Neath go into this full auto attack build. So I think you can fight into it, but you need to make sure you've got lockdown there to stop those autos coming out. It's going to be tough, but I don't think it's undoable.
Well, Looking at this, as reveals that the Gold Fury is going down, but they've not noticed around the back. Download later, and Zats are looking to go ahead and go on in. Team Toxic, though, still secure it. Cheeto is at 1 HP. Azza, however, was dealing a 1v1 against Judas. Judas did their job. They distracted the one zoning. Unfortunately, the rest of the team couldn't go ahead and sneak away the objective. Instead, the other two members used that time to grab Pyromancer. So Pyro for Gold Fury, is it still worth an even trade at the end of the day?
It's not necessarily worth, because you also lost your ADC, but provided you picked up that runic bomb and you can generate pressure somewhere, and looking at the team composition of the map.
No. Oh, it's gonna run out. No.
Oh no.
Thank you for pointing that out, Judas.
What I said. It wasn't worth it at all.
It was worth the bonus gold, and we heard the ding.
It was worth the real worth was the entertainment value we've got along the way.
We did, as Unicorn goes in aggressively onto Timzor, gets a lot of damage onto them, forces them as a TKO, which is almost as good as the gold that you'd get for it. Neath now starting to make some rotations out. It's level 17. Somehow has just found themselves a phenomenal lead coming through. Like you said, just 5 out of 8 kills have got some form of their name on it. And like you said, you're not ever called to rotate out of this lane. They've already got the tier 1 tower, so now looking to try and pressure this out. No objectives, sans the Fire Giant on the map, so it's all about looking for Zats here. Zats gets a good ultimate to fry them a lot of time. B-Day gets expelled as well, and again they leash in Azza, and just like that, Zats picks him up, takes the dog to the pound. And that's a 1-for-none trade, but health bars are too low to stick around. They'll have to forfeit this tower in trade. This Kezvet's also over here as well. Hell, this might even be a tier 2.
This is a really strong grouping. They've got a lot of sustain between the
huge landfall.
But
it's just not enough at this point. Kezvet's doing so much, zoning everyone else away. No one feels like they can step up. And because Mike's over this side of the map, the Hades is on the map as well. No one on Team Toxic is concerned, so they'll trade out a tier 1 and a tier 2 for maybe 2 tier 1s. That is a lot of map pressure once again, opening up that mid lane for Team Toxic.
Yeah, they've opened up mid entirely. You've got a 2-tower deficit in mid as Ehete 2, and granted you're able to take the tier 1s on both of your side lanes, but that only leaves you one side lane where you're ahead. Wave states are really good, but that's not going to last forever. For Ehete 2, this map is falling apart, and it's falling apart fast. The good news is you're not sufficiently behind gold-wise, and with a tower lead in the way of Team Toxic as well, that gold lead is a little bit inflated. That gold lead isn't going to spike in the same way because there are fewer structures for them to take, but your angles back into this game are shrinking, and that's a thing that you need to be concerned about if you're Ehete 2.
Definitely agree here, but we can already see some changes up coming through. With this Hades build starting to go for even more lifesteal coming through, no major defenses online aside from the breastplate of regrowth. I'm kind of concerned that Hades is going to show up to a team fight and just get laughed out, and by laughed out I mean poked out and or killed.
Yeah, the Hades is going to need to play like a traditional assassin at this point in the game until more of that survivability comes through. I'm thinking something like Tainted Breastplate or something like that, because what you need to do is you need to find an angle where you go essentially unseen, you go in, you drop the entire kit, you kill someone, potentially with your jungler as well, and then get out and hope that was enough of an advantage to turn the fight. But if they try and play this like a traditional solo laner, you're absolutely right. There's a real risk that you get poked out before the fight even begins. And that's not good if you're this far behind.
It's not. Fury is up, and all 5 members from both of these two teams are here. It's low, and they're just looking to jump on in. Ehete 2 steal it away. Landfall and Pillar of Agony do a lot of work here, but the Ragnarok puts Macbeth so low that they're just not able to do anything. Pink Unicorn comes around the back and finds Azza. That's a huge engagement for them. They're trying to go and look for more. They will grab the double kill, and now with the ultimate as well, they also sustain. Train of Pain mowing down members here. It is a triple kill going through. Mike puts them down, but look at everyone else. They're just so low. Kesvet showed up dead on Spectator. That's how low he was.
It's not a perfect system, but what was a perfect system was the engage by Pink Unicorn in that fight. I want to draw viewers' attention to the fact that there has been a cursed Ankh picked up to deal with the sustain coming out from this set to stop those kind of snowballs in team fights, because that's what Set does. Gets a kill, sustains through, and then just keeps going through in a team fight. But Set managed to dodge out the cursed Ankh, which allowed him to keep rolling through that fight, gaining momentum, and gave the team time to catch up. Sure, you eventually lost the lead that Pink Unicorn has built up with Pink Unicorn falling to be like Mike, but at that point the rest of the team caught up, able to get a kill over on Judas Priestley, and then get the Fire Giant. For Ehete 2, that's exactly the kind of fight you want to see at this point. They picked up 2 objectives and essentially a deicide in that one fight. You can't ask for anything more for this team right now.
Yeah, like looking at what we end up seeing here as well, it's that gold inflation as well. Just that big, no! Steal it away? Alright, now this time I don't mind them not picking up the bomb, but stealing it away... Are we sure we got these team names and player names the right way around?
Hey,
no offense to Ehete too, but...
I need to correct myself actually on that last fight. The Ankh is picked up by Download Later to try and quell the healing on the side of Team Toxic. So the set didn't dodge anything. They just played incredibly well.
Well, he still dodged the Ankh, or used the Ankh at the perfect moment. Like, Cheeto couldn't do anything for the healing side of things. Timzor, for me, has been the big thing that's had a dramatically different game. And look at the state of the game because of it. Pink Unicorn has been gunning for him.
It does feel like Timzor of Game 1 and Timzor of Game 2 are entirely different players, but with the same nameplate over the god.
Hades,
round
the back.
Wow.
Huge Pillar of Agony locks in members. Cheeto tries to keep everyone out, but even so, Team Toxic are the ones trying to push this down here. A lot of healing. Big landfall pulls 2 members out of the way, but this is a very strangely split fight. Zaz is out in the middle of Tier 2 Towers lane. In mid, somehow leading the charge, but everyone has finally isolated out Timzor, and that puts them down. Cheeto will be soon to follow as well. Judas Priestley answers that one. A 2 for none. Again, love the idea of Team Toxic pushing up. Do not love how split up they got so quickly.
The positioning in that fight from Team Toxic was horrible, but it's on Ehete 2 to be able to punish that as well as they did. They picked up Terra Timzor, who hasn't been a huge contributor into these fights, but still taking a player off the map is important. And then getting rid of Cheeto, who has been pretty impactful, really, really important. And now with this 5-3 advantage, it's a big power play to be on, and you've got the Fire Giant for sustain as well. Hopefully Ehete 2 can pick up some things, and getting that mid-tier 2 and then transitioning over to get left side tier 2 as well. I really like this for Ehete 2.
It does feel like they are heading in the right direction with the way this game is going here, and even the way Julius is opting to build, just going full on attack speed, seeing just trying to poke out members, keep them out of the way, and not letting them get involved in the game. Absolutely love to see this. As now Life of the Party comes out, Pink Unicorn sandstorms away from that. They will not get the tier 2 tower, and Kesvet will try and just feint out whatever they can. Priestley is so far forward in this engagement, drops out the ult, but it's let everyone get into this Pillar of Agony. Follows out with the Devour Souls, as again these members are playing with their health bars so beautifully there. It is another 2 for 1 in favor of Ehete 2. Credit Fire Giant for that extra healing. As the Hades goes forward, look at the Cheeto, one more shot would do it. They don't quite get it, so they'll just have to take the consolation prize of the tier 2 tower and this Oni Fury.
And the Oni Fury is exactly what you want to see if you're a Ehete 2 here. You've already pushed out your side lanes. You've managed to get a huge tier 2 on the left side, and now you're going to have enhanced minions from this Oni Fury marching down all 3 of these lanes, but especially that side lane where you've really exposed a vulnerability. With 2 Phoenixes exposed, they can group up, and they've got their pick of the litter on this map. Plus Fire Giant coming up too. Team Toxic have got a real effort on their hands to try and clean up the state of this map and contest the Fire Giant.
No, Cleveland's not in this game. That was the last game that we saw that. It's Set now, who's in for this game of this set. Sorry, you knew I had to do it. You
lost me.
I'm being told to leave, but I won't do that to you, Haunting. But now, with Fire Giant, like you said, perfect time for this Oni Fury. It's exactly what you want. I always say that every Fury is designed to help you get the Fire Giant, and this is exactly what it does. There's pressure in all 3 lanes. You've got to either deal with that or Fire Giant. And at this point in time, Toxic look like they want to go ahead and say, we'll afford a little bit of lane pressure and try and fight you on this Fire Giant. But even so, Ehete too are looking to try and pressure them out. They've got eyes on a lot of them. Cheeto takes a huge amount of damage, gets pushed back in by the Dueling Dragons. That's the TKO for them, because round the back, in goes the Hades, looking to try and help out onto the set. They can't quite save the set, but they will still trade out 1 for 1. Azza, Kazvet, Cheeto, all in the yellow at best. And Timzor in the gray screen. Be Like Mike can't find an edge way in. Fire Giant still could be looked at here for Ehete.
They do have to be careful with this one, though. Be Like Mike is on his way over, and there is a lot of things that this Neath can do. Good lockdown on to download later. A lot of disruption coming through from this team. I don't think you can necessarily step up to the Fire Giant if you're Ehete 2 right now, especially with just like Azza waiting in the wings and Kazvet nice and healthy as well. This is going to be a really big ask, and instead the Pyromancer looks like it's what's going to be on the menu. And Cheeto maybe...
Oh, that's so much damage! So much damage, and the extra damage comes through from the Odibo there. A chunk of damage, and the Pyromancer to answer back. And like you said, maybe Fire Giant was a bit too much to ask, but now, though, they actually have the bomb for them. Fire Giant is going to be looked at. Unicorn is back on the map and making their way over. So this could technically be a full 5v5 for this Fire Giant here.
It could. Time left for Cheeto, though, to come up 20 seconds, and I don't think this fight is going to last that long.
Uh-oh, Kezvet's going in for the ultimate. They're trying to be able to look for it. Be Like Mike finds the Hades. Ehete 2 do grab themselves the Fire Giant, but now Azra is looking to try and answer this back. Timzor just made it to the fight and is deleted. Oh, Timzor, I'm sorry. You don't get to play Smite for a while there. But as a jungler, that is what you were designed to do, and you did it perfectly.
I think Unicorn has played this game really, really well. And Timzor just hasn't been able to play the game. We've seen 9 kills for Pink Unicorn, 8 deaths for Timzor. I'd be willing to bet that's where most of Pink Unicorn's 9 kills have come from. Sometimes this is what you have to do as a jungler, is you pick someone and they're your victim for the game. And you're just going to make sure that your laner gets ahead. They don't necessarily need to participate in the kills, although that's ideal, but what they do get is they just get to free farm, because the enemy laner is just going to be spending all of the game returning from fountain to lane, getting ganked, and doing that over and over again. And it's worked out. Zats has been undying, 2-0-9, so contributed to a fair number of kills, laid out a decent amount of damage, second highest damage on the charts. And I think a lot of that has come from the fact that this mid lane matchup has essentially been uncontested because of how often Timzor has been on that grey screen, and it's allowed Zats to get into a position where he can deal damage in these fights as well.
And to point out as well, it's not for lack of trying to take down Zats, as big landfall, the tower blocks off the path. It was all set up perfectly, but curse that tower there. Unfortunately, fortunately, it has now fallen, so plays like that will not be disrupted by the pull from a tier 2 tower. But I love the fact that Judas was there and like, I trust you, I'm ulting immediately.
Yeah, this is exactly what you have to do when you're playing at this level. It's something that we see less on these kinds of team comps, where you don't necessarily have the traditional ults to set something like that up. But you think about it, that's how winning Smite teams have won games of Smite through years past. Things like Naja ult into Searing Pain, or Naja ult into Kraken. Those kind of classic Smite 1-2 combos, and we saw one set up there with landfall into the Wild Hunt. It just so happened that the map geography was working against them. Still, for a team like Ehete 2 who have recently been promoted into this league, that's the kind of thing that you want to be doing if you want to move up in any further in this league and further up into other divisions too. I love to see it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, and it also as well, it's just that trust, that communication, that snap call to make these things. Sure, it didn't work out this time. That doesn't mean it's going to not work out every time. And so you just build up that rapport of good form, which puts you in the position where when it does pop off, you don't feel like it was an accident, because now they're looking at all these Phoenixes here. With this Fire Giant in tow, Azra is forced away immediately. They are looking at the left side here. But how is the siege for these two teams? Toxic has okay clear as far as I can see, but Ehete 2, they're the ones controlling the pace of the game.
Toxic have good clear. Ehete 2 have very good clear too with what you're getting out of Yu Huang and Kernanos. There's not like an obvious clear monster here, something like a Merlin that you're used to see. It's just, I think it's a lot harder for them to get in. With Hades, who needs to be a little bit more careful with their engages than some of your typical solo laners because they run the risk of getting turned and burned. I think you're going to be left in these situations here where you're just sat on the outside of a Phoenix waiting for the right moment to go in, and all the time you're doing that, these Fire Giant buffs are ticking down, and you're eventually going to lose the kind of advantage you've built up on the siege, and it looks exactly like that's what's happening. Ehete 2 have decided they're going to disengage and look to pick up neutral objectives elsewhere on the map, and that's really dangerous because you give your opponent time to get to the stage of the game where gold leads don't matter, where experience leads don't matter. And I'd be a little bit scared with Ehete 2. If no one's willing to pull the trigger, you're going to struggle to get out of this game.
That looks to be what's ended up happening here, and like you said, items slowly starting to come online. This full Lono's mask now finished off for Cheeto. They're going to be incredibly tanky, full prophetic cloak now. They are so difficult to be able to deal with, and that healing becomes even more annoying the longer they stay alive. So at this point now, Primal Fury does get taken down by Judas just about by themselves, so they've got that available to them, and knowing that, Team Toxic have gone ahead to try and pull up the Pyromancer. They do go ahead and grab it as well. They'll put that on Cheeto for now. And I think for me, the big thing as well is they didn't have that much pressure or they didn't have to worry that much about pressure to Team Toxic on the left side, because right side, minions were pushing into the tier 1 tower. Mid lane had minions down by the tier 2 tower, thanks to Tiamat and the extra minions they spawned. So wave favor, they didn't have to worry about, oh, someone's going to split push down mid, and that meant they could consolidate all in one lane, and now they can do the same thing here at the Fire Giant.
Right. The good thing for Ehete 2, I suppose, is that you still have priority over in that left lane, which is the furthest away, although there are Tiamat minions now starting to push down, but you've lost your control over the 2 lanes close to the Fire Giant, which makes it a lot easier for Team Toxic to step up and try and control this pit. If I'm on Ehete 2, I think I want to send someone, even if it's just set to go and lay down a skewer, clear out this wave in mid, and maybe have someone shadow over to where just like Azra is, because otherwise you risk losing entire control over the pit. Looks like that's what they've done, but now it's about the decision of what you do. Do you bait and try and turn and burn? Do you try and rush this down? Because right now Team Toxic look like they're spoiling for a fight, and they're able to clear out a tower as well, so this is favoring them at this point.
It is, but bear in mind, this is the middle division, and we're talking at like the high-end minutia of wave pressure and map pressure in that regard, and how you deal with an extended Fire Giant siege. These two teams are at either end of this, and showing just how in-depth that knowledge goes for things. Is it does look like it is going to be that poke war attempt, but against a healing comp, it's not always easy to deal with that. Thankfully, Cheeto isn't exactly the best healer when it comes to that. They have to be in combat to try and actually effectively heal, so you do have a little bit of luck with it here, but even so, it's on very tender hooks right now. As Cheeto, again, they seem to be the target that Ehete want to fight.
And Cheeto is one of those characters right now on this Baron Samedi who if they get caught out and they don't necessarily have ult, they are dead, and even with ult, it's not like a burst mage where you are worried about getting killed.
Oh, he got pinned! just like that, life of the party goes on cooldown, but it does not do anything else. The curse is there as well. Round the back, Pink Unicorn tried, but just didn't have enough damage with too many members around. Judas answers, though, and finally takes down Timzor. That's a lot of damage. Kezvet went in, looking to try and keep everyone else safe, but it's just not worked out for them. Be Like Mike gets pressured, but Azza, Be Like Azza, if you're going to be a jungler, they sneak on in and sneak away with a kill. Kezvet may have gotten baited into a bad situation, but just about makes them way away. A 2-for-1 that Team Toxic take back.
And getting rid of Pink Unicorn there has got to be such a confidence boost for Team Toxic, because this set has been a thorn in the side of Team Toxic this entire game. And granted, it was essentially a 1-for-1 trade, but I think if you're gonna sacrifice your mid laner, who has been a weak spot for your team this game, in order to get rid of the jungler that has been running these fights, you've got to feel great about that as Team Toxic.
Yeah, I gotta praise that kind of call as well. And the fact that, like, everything for Ehete 2 made a lot of sense. Pink Unicorns around the back, get them to dive in. The only thing they needed, they just needed one more person with them, whether it's Download, whether it's Hades, either way, one of those two with them, and they can start absorbing some more of this damage. They can start causing more problems. This Hades can start healing. You can get a lot more out of that. Pink Unicorn just oversteps the gun a little bit, or the other team doesn't quite follow up. Either way, Primal Fury goes down again. Fire Giant is being started by Ehete 2. Team Toxic are very much aware of this, but can't quite stop it just yet. So it looks like we're going for turn and burn strats here. Dueling Dragons is out. Fire Giant is on barely 100 HP and finally gets taken down. Judas falls, though, immediately after. And just like that, Pink Unicorn finds Cheeto, thanks to a great setup with Pillar of Agony. 2-for-1 and Fire Giant. At the very least, these Oni minions are going to cause trouble, but Azza is split pushing down and could potentially go for an answer back with their Phoenix of their own.
I really love that from Azza, that entire fight, just having the discipline to stay over there, keep pushing, make sure these Oni minions are going to have an impact. I was a little bit surprised we didn't see Be Like Mike stay over there too, given that the World Weaver gives you an option to interrupt with that fight as well. Really unfortunate there for Judas Priestley being the first kill of the game for Terra Timzor, but as a fight goes, Ehete 2 taking another Fire Giant is really good, especially this EFG, but they really struggled to siege Phoenixes last time they had a Fire Giant, and I feel like the game has increasingly got to a point where Team Toxic are able to fight back. I don't know that I love this position for Ehete 2. I don't see that Team Toxic necessarily have a way of beating them right now in these fights. But, and especially with the enhanced Fire Giant buff, but you need someone who's going to be the one to say, all right, we're going in, we're taking a Phoenix. And the last time we saw someone put their finger on the trigger and pull for Team Toxic, it was Pink Unicorn on the back of that fight that just went entirely pear-shaped for them. So I'm feeling uneasy at this point if I'm the shot caller for Ehete 2.
But if you're on Team Toxic, what is your game plan? Is it try and push out the lanes? Is it try and just fight them 5v5? Now you're this late into the game. Where are you looking here to try and claw back some pressure?
I think the game plan's actually pretty straightforward for Team Toxic. I agree with you that you want to split it a little bit, pushing out these lanes, and I like what just like Azra's been doing on side lanes. But you look at this composition, you've got some pretty good displacement between Fenrir and the life of the party, but this fight is flooding away.
Whoa, that Phoenix health is gone immediately. Judas Priestley as well answers back with a kill on Timzor again. Phoenix does finally end up falling there. Download later gets low. Azra, though, ends up eating the shell and jumping on in, and that's all the Q that's needed. Aegis comes through, beautifully timed as well. Download later's ult saved it right to the end. 3 members gone. Unicorn lives that fight as well. Zats takes down Be Like Mike, and that might just be the entire game here. Only Kev left up to try and deal with it, but they can't. Ehete 2 are taking us to a game 3.
I love that fight there. They were very careful. They played it really well. And look at Pink Unicorn living on just a fraction of their health. But all of that damage coming out from Ehete 2, that fight was played the way that we've liked seeing them play before. You go in, you burst someone down between the Hades and the set, you get the cleanup, and you just shut off the healing as well. That's one of the things that Download Later has done this game. Perhaps the landfalls weren't as impressive as game number 1, but relic usage to make sure your team is doing what they need to do has been perfect. And they've been able to get their backline involved too. Zats, Judas Priestley, both those players were involved in these fights and integral to how they went, especially in that end of the game. Fantastic stuff from Ehete 2. And for teams at opposite poles within this division, the fact that we're going to a game 3 in the set at all just shows that Smite Night is a really competitive league.
Absolutely, and such great play there. That fight there is the duality of it. Pink Unicorn goes in first, Pink Unicorn dies, fight's over. Hades goes in first, takes a bit of poke, and Pink Unicorn follows up after. Pink Unicorn gets to live on the barest of HPs in the team and wins the game. Like that's straight up the difference of it. And the way that they analyzed it, I don't know whether Timzor was the problem in game 1, but they certainly made it the solution to game 2.
And that's something that I think is going to be looked at in game 3. You've now gotten some fact-finding done on this enemy team. You've found a potential weak point that you can exploit. And I expect that to be exactly where Ehete 2 look into game 2 as well. Can we force Terra Timzor onto a vulnerable pick and keep just pressuring their resources, get rid of their beads, get rid of their Aegis, get rid of their life bar, and just allow Zats to farm up and get to a point in this game where they can fight? Because Be Like Mike is going to play aggressive as hell over in that duo lane regardless. So if we can look to get our solo laners ahead, our mid lane, our solo laner, I think that's where this game 3 is gonna lie for Ehete 2. You've got to try and get mid and solo ahead and win through that, and then just hope that there's not too much of a gulf over in duo lane by the time that Judas is online on the build, because we saw Judas pumping out damage in those fights. And I think if you can just make sure that he hangs on, this game plan has come together for me, and I expect them to try and do exactly the same thing in game 3.
Well, now's the time to go ahead and get things set up for game 3. We're going to go ahead and take it to a quick break. I suggest you go and grab a snack in that time, because I doubt you'll want to miss a second of this final game. bottom of the division. Both these two teams have clashed now twice, and both of them have come away with a victory. So to settle the score, we are going all the way here to a game 3. Haunting, we're on a little bit of a time limit here, so gotta ask you, like, going in here, do Team Toxic have to change up too much, or just play better?
Wow, I don't think it's just play better, but I think you've potentially got to look at going back to some things that worked in game 1. I think the Yemoja was a better pick in game 1 than the Baron. I like Baron support a lot, but I don't think it did the most in game number 2. I also think at this point, Download Later's Maui is potentially earned a spot on the ban list. Now, do you risk opening up some of those banned picks to what members on Ehete 2 are able to do? I don't know that that's necessarily a good idea, but do you really want to face landfall after landfall after landfall over and over again? Because even in game 1, that was a bright spot, and in game 2, I feel like with a team that was cohesive around it, Ehete 2 looked so much better, and denying them engage tools, I think, is the key to success here.
Yeah, I mean, it quite literally, I'm going to go ahead and say it won them the last game. It kept Pink Unicorn alive in that last siege, which meant they were alive for the Titan fight, which means that the Titan ended up falling fast enough, so nobody ended up having to back off from that. I'm going to go ahead and say that that was literally what it was. But with that Maui on the table, let's see if it gets taken off the table here in Game 3's Picks and Bans. Toxic once again back onto the order side, and if the last 2 games are anything to go by, the team who's gotten first pick has gotten the better end of the game, so maybe that's an omen already. But Naja taken off the table, as is Ao Kwong. None of these junglers are going to get to see play here in this set.
No, and after seeing the set played by Pink Unicorn last game, I'm not surprised that Ao Kwong has been banned every game, but a little surprised that they opt to ban it themselves, although perhaps they just want that setback, and I can't blame them for that either. Agni going down at 2, Thor as well. These bans are pretty much the same, but I do think I've got to see a Maui ban come out from the order side, or maybe they're looking to take it themselves first pick.
Could potentially be that way. Artemis is banned by Ehete. And given how game 1 went, that is no surprise. But Yemoja is on the table. Maui, more importantly, has been on the table. And this is feeling like the world's meta I know and love. Well, maybe not love, but Maui first pick here for Team Toxic. Now the question is, how do you punish it?
That's a really hard one. I think you have to go really intense dive to punish Maui. I think Maui is a support that likes to dive himself, and brought it up in the last couple of games. Not great at peeling for his own backline. So if you can find ways to punish the backline, that's how you counter draft here. And whilst you say that you don't necessarily love the meta that Maui shows up in, I think this god is a hoot to watch in competitive. And
oh yes,
I think this god could be in the competitive meta forever, and I'd be pretty happy with that. A good Maui is one of the most fun gods to watch.
Agreed very heavily on that side of things. Yu Huang for the 3rd time now for Zats, and the Hades going in the hands of the Scottish Play, or I guess in this case, if he uses the right skin, it could be the Scottish Plague. Ooh. Oh, I'm gonna look forward to that. Please, you better use the right skin for this one. I know it's pre-recorded, but that's not the point. Please use the right skin. And this Yu Huang Hades combo, it just worked so well last game at controlling the space for where people just ended up eating too much damage.
Absolutely. And granted, I think there were moments in the middle of the game where I lost some confidence in this Hades pick. But by the end of the game, it felt like they'd really synchronized how they wanted their dive to work. And I think this is, you pair the right jungler with it, and this again is going to be a pretty good recipe here for Ehete 2. Rama coming up on the other side, though. This is what I expected to see in game 1 with the duo lane bans that were coming down. And with the kind of confidence that Be Like Mike plays with, if this god can survive its weaker early levels, that's a ticking time bomb.
Agreed. And like you said, with Maui being a fantastic god to watch, Ram is a marvels to watch when played very well. The Chalk pick. Hello, Chalk. This one into Hades. I'm assuming it's going into Hades, unless you want to go with like Chalk mid, but
Chalk mid.
I've got 500 Chuck,
the
I
jungle.
want Chuck mid, okay? Maybe
The jungle.
Ooh. No, because Chungle's Chunga jungle. It'd have to be the
like
Changle.
It's
It's
a
the Changle angle.
Either way, the set comes back through and locking in these three. I think that's really strong for Ehete 2. The thing that concerns me about their top three is we don't see what the duo lane is whatsoever. I'm not so worried about what the carry pick is going to be, but a lot of weight was put on the shoulders of Download Later's Maui in games 1 and 2, and with the opportunity to ban out some more supports here, I'm feeling nervous.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I was gonna say like Umoja comes to mind if you want to take that off the table. Barkus, Ares. I'm thinking I want something that that Download Later can control the game on and try and position for the team. Xing Chen's another good shout out. Yeah. At this point, I'm just trying to remember what gods are in the game because it's been a while since I played the game. But yeah, like Athena feels like a decent call. You could also potentially look to try and find some ban outs here. The Merlin ban and the Fenrir ban. The Fenrir makes complete sense. The Merlin here, I'm surprised it's not a Tiamat ban, but at the same time, with how last game went, do you really care if you see Tiamat again?
No, but also the Merlin ban is a little bit surprising because you've seen that actually if we pressure Terra Timzor, we can do very well through this mid lane. And whilst Merlin is great once that tablet build is online and when you've got all of your poke coming down, rotating those abilities through, plays like a dream. But if you can take advantage of this Merlin's positioning, he doesn't get to play the game. Flicker is a very short-ranged escape, shorter range than both the Tiamat jumps, and we already saw what happened to Terra Timzor there. And I feel like actually Ehete 2 were in perfect position to stop a pick like a Merlin. So the fact that they've opted to let it through surprises me a little. Maybe Terra Timzor is a Merlin specialist that we just don't know about behind the scenes. But I think it's an easier pick to punish than some of the other mid lane picks they could look into.
Oh boy, well I was excited about seeing the Xibalonkwe for that late game, but instead we get the trio of Storm Trouble coming through. Chuck, Raijin and Susano, the Summer Storm, the Thunder and the Lightning now. If there was ever a three-piece that goes well together, it's gotta be those three here. And just like Azza, you want a god that can get in 100 to 0 people? Fenrir, Susanoo, the Tsukuyomi, they all feel like they do the same thing. So how do you deal with that? Ganesha.
Love it.
Love it. Love it.
This is such a good pick. And if you're a support who is able to play heads up, this Ganesha pick is great. Plus, with the Pillar of Agony and the root coming through from Dao Mastery on Yu Huang, there's some ways of trapping people in those pillars as well. And this is a really great start for Download Later to be in. If those ults are anywhere near as good as the landfalls, I feel like Ehete 2's draft has got a really key piece to protect its backline now.
It certainly does. These Dharmic Pillars of Agony combo, as I am now coining it, could very well be the thing that spells the key to this game victory. But that was it. That's all the drafts that's going to be done. That's all the bans that are going to be done. Now let's see just how this game goes here as we jump on into the final game. Team Toxic looking to defend their honor, and Ehete 2 looking to try and prove that they can battle with the big boys here as we get on into game.
Nothing particularly notable about these starts. Interesting to see that just like Azza has opted again for this Bluestone, you do get a lot of use out of it with Susano because of all of the ability damage that this god relies on. But the changes that came through to Bluestone to start the season, where there's a little bit of a... I hesitate to use this word because it has a specific meaning in Smite, but you get diminishing returns on spamming abilities like you would before with, say, gods like King Arthur. So it's not as broken as it could be on Susano, but still an impressive thing nonetheless.
Wow, that was very aggressive jump in there from Timzor. The Thunder Crash there to peel off Azza didn't work out so well, as under 150 health goes Timzor. So again, just like that just like the second game, very aggressive play here. pulling on in on download later. But Ram versus Xbalanque, both great late game. But in terms of clear, there seems to be a clear favorite.
Ram just chunks waves with the astral arrows. That said, Xbalanque is not going to be far behind if you max that branching bolas first. But you get in a weird spot where your mana pool gets really heavily drained and only 50% HP. This could be dangerous for Judas Priestley.
Oh, it's even grosser because the Ohm goes down. He pulls both back in. And that's just a pick potential there for Judas. The Rising Jaguar buys enough time, but the Astral Arrows, there's just not enough shots. Everything went perfectly there for Team Toxic. But just by the lucky elephant's foot, Ehete 2 do not drop first blood there. And that's the kind of gross jungler I'm expecting to see. I'm going to gank you under 2 minutes into the game at level 3 because I'm just a gross, sweaty jungle main.
Thanks. Judas, could you just let me go? I'm done for the night after that. That's slide. Yeah, thanks. No,
you're a jungle main? Ew.
I think the thing that I want to comment on there from just like Azza is the patience to wait for the Ohm to go down. It would have been so easy just to have gone, I just want to get kills, I just want to pump damage out, I just want to go in. And that's what we've seen from Azza before. These last 2 games, Azza's just been running in heedlessly. But waiting for that Ohm to go down and knowing that you could maximize your opportunity to get a kill, that's really good. Good using your head and not just your hands gameplay.
And so as we saw there, Unicorn went for the same kind of play, but the ward vision meant that as soon as that happened, both Cheeto and Mike turned tail and ran. Again, nice Ohm, trying to buy some time, but Priestley is way too low to try and stick around those Astral Arrows. You can't body block them. It just makes it an absolute nightmare to try and deal with. Like you said, in lane and in most situations it is. So we come on in over 3 minutes here. Map state. It's still Ehete 2 who actually have a little bit of a gold lead here. And I have to feel that's just because of how well they were able to pressure out mid.
Not just how well they were able to pressure out mid, but having seen, just like Azza, be more active in lanes, but not get any kills, that buys time for Pink Unicorn to farm better and for the rest of your team to not be splitting farms. So there's some advantages to the way that Pink Unicorn's been playing, and now that Pink Unicorn's ticked over to level 5, that Kingslayer ultimate is in play, and that's what you need to really make things happen as set.
Well, let's see if that ends up working out right now. Kazbek does go for the ultimate, but it's right into the Pillar of Agony. Bees expended by Pink Unicorn, just to confirm that they will be the ones who gets the kill, but either way, a kill is a kill. Zatsy's low. The taunt comes on out. The Dueling Dragons is available. It's mostly just used to push back Azza. So with all that said and done, no return kill found for Team Toxic.
Really good there by Zats to survive. A lot of resources invested in trying to take his
life.
Ooh.
Get on in. Dharmic Pillars and Landfall both used out here. This is all over the protection buff at best. Pull back in from Cheeto on to download later and trying to just find as much as they can. The Solar Swing is good to damage both of them and the roll as well. This duo lane is getting absolutely hammered. Let's see if they've got the snipes. There's 1, 2, needs 1 more. And he finds it. Be like Mike. Comes up big with a slam dunk.
That's really good there from Be Like Mike, and the kind of thing that I think we expected to see based on how the other games are going. Just an ADC that plays with a lot of confidence and up, making aggressive plays. There's something. I know in game 1 you compared him to Panda Cat on the Artemis, but there's something of the Zapman of old being this aggressive playmaker. Is Be Like Mike, but I suppose the good thing there for Ehete 2 is you do only lose the support there. You don't lose your own ADC, and with how long the game's been going on, I wouldn't be surprised if Judas is able to back for that RC soon as well. So able to then, full RC complete there on that back. So going deathless in the early lane despite soaking up a lot of aggression, and now able to match the item build and have the ability to box and survive off of waves. This is a really decent position to be in for Judas Priestley despite falling behind in the early.
It does seem this way, and as now both these ADCs are going to get left alone. Kazmet is incredibly low to try and take this boxing fight, but they know they have support coming through beside them. So right now, the Hades just feels like, oh, it's lane pressure.
And
Keep
no
an eye
pillar
on
of
where Az
agony
is.
either.
That's the big one, yeah. Whoa, when did Cheeto get so low? Asvet baits in beautifully there. And that's a full wave going into tower as well.
That's so important. We talked about last game that what you want to do with this Hades is build Hades up to the point where Hades can come in and burst backliners. But falling behind this Chuck, who's presumably gonna be building a little bit of power too with that tier 2 Transcendence build, you're gonna be falling further and further behind with this Hades. Lots of sustain coming through in lane, lots of easy clear for this Chuck too. This isn't where you want your right side of the map to be if you're a Ehete 2 right now.
Very true. I'm actually surprised that we're not seeing that the lifesteal come out first item, especially into an aggressive lane.
Yeah.
But now let's see how aggressive things get here in the mid lane. Download later does get through landfall thanks to the remove obstacle. Very important note there. Don't forget, you can walk through those deployables as Judas is taking it to Mike right now. The Asi, though, the heal is so strong, goes up into the ultimate. And now Azza's here just to remind you, there is no such thing as a 1v1 in Smite.
Yeah, and not respecting the 1v1 is something that I'm normally here to call out. But because Judas said no respect into my ear as that went down, what I want to actually comment on is the great timing of the gank there from just like
Oh
Azza.
yeah, dirty jungle mains. Dirty jungle mains doing dirty jungle main things just like that. Another 1v1 happening, but there is no such thing. It does not matter if you're an ADC, if you're a solo laner, a mid laner, hell, even a support. You will get ganked, and you will blame anyone else on the team, not the fact that you don't have wards.
Or that you've used your escape or your ult or what have you.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you got to use the escape to go in aggressively in the 1v1. Like, that's the whole point.
They're talking, isn't it? That's the...
Yes, that's the dirty solo main, solo lane main.
But this is the up-down button. What do you mean escape?
Yeah. Why would I escape over a wall with Bologna ult when I could up down and get more protection so that I can definitely live this 3v1?
Lord of the Afterlife only works if you target your opponent.
Oh, could you imagine? Could you imagine like old Ravano where it used to always target someone? That would be
that's all solo lanes. That's all they want to do.
Yeah.
I want to leap in place to kill my opponent.
On a minor side note, did you see the old video of a Ravan ult targeting someone who's backed, and it doesn't land?
Did they land
until they'd already backed? And they landed in. They jumped from like middle of the lane to fountain. It was brilliant.
That's fantastic.
It truly is. It's a sight to behold. But we've got some good sights to behold here in the game as well. 3-2 here as we breach the 9-minute mark. Gold slightly shy of a clean 1,000, but still in favor of a Ehete right now. Lane pressure as well. Their solo lane tower has fallen, and even though the Hades is behind, they still feel impactful right now, and that is part and parcel thanks to Pink Unicorn.
It is, and actually Pink Unicorn was the one that was pushing down that tower and got the kill onto the tower, so they would have got the most gold for getting that tower down, which is important because Pink Unicorn, I think, is going to end up being the one to carry a lot of these fights if this game goes anything like it did last game. Plus, you've got some juicy targets. Be like Mike has been getting fed up over on that left-hand side of the map, and I feel like it's going to be Pink Unicorns who's the one who's able to reap the benefit of that. Although, right now, looks like...
Hades, hello? Hades, you wanna be a part of this fight right now? Pink Unicorn was there fighting for the damn life. And they're thinking, all right, he's gonna death from below. Death from below's coming in. He's got a lot of heal for him, and they're just there looking at the wall, like, you good? You good? You good?
As a jungle main who's been the target of a lot of slander on this stream, that's what I'm used to from my solo laner.
Look, I've got to call out that you got to call it out, okay? You got to call out the plays when they happen. That's what I'm here for as a caster, as Priestley gets to use the landfall themselves as a shield versus Mike. And now that's down as well. No beads had to be burnt by Judas, who does look to also be going this crit build here, changing it up.
Interesting decision. There's a tankier front line on the other side, which I would have felt is the time and place for something like the Shred build, but I suppose what they're actually looking to do is take advantage of a slightly more vulnerable team to try and kill the diving jungler. Pink Unicorn getting another one, and this kill streak is rolling already for the set. Fully stacked Transcendence already, level 12, 2 levels up on their enemy jungler. This is all now going to be about essentially a protect the queen composition around this set and seeing if you can try and turn this game that's already got an early lead into a quick close.
Oh, and that also going for the next one as well. Chalk is over this side of the map, but they're all looking to try and land on in. Great timing on these ultimates to push everyone else away. It's a 4v4 over this side of the map. But even so, Zats is in trouble now. Great peel coming through from Download Later. Gets everyone else further away. Cheeto looking to solo swing on in. Will not land. Unfortunately, Download Later is taking just too much damage. Backs away to make sure Azza does not TP too close to their teammates. Download Later, being the best support possible, goes down for the team's sins. And also, credit for that kill under tier 1 tower. That was all Download Later's Dharmic Pillars doing stupidly ridiculous damage. But now we're seeing a problem here. Most of the members from Eddie are too low to come on in, and this Gold Fury is going down fast.
It is Pink Unicorn probably going to lose out on the Assassin 1v1 over here, but decides just to opt out entirely.
Ooh, Zats is in a little trouble, but thankfully the rest of the team not noticing the landfall pulls them in, instead just trying to back on away. So instead, like we saw last game, we'll see a trade out on the objectives here. As this Hades gets incredibly low, someone pick it up. Oh, thank goodness they did.
Good. Glad we're not.
Yeah, we both take a breather. Both take a breather there. Just good.
I feel like this is going to be the thing in Smite this year, is making sure that someone picks up the runic bomb. And you can bet the first time that a pro doesn't do it, it's going to be a big deal.
I think it was already done in some of the
I'm talking like SPL, right? When teams have
had
SPL stuff, lots of time to scrim on this, because it's not going away for Season of Hope. So this mechanic is staying in play. Teams have had a lot of time to scrim with it, and I bet the first player that doesn't pick it up is going to get absolutely ridiculed on stream.
Very true. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if you don't pick it up, that is 33 gold you have wasted. Like, straight up, 33 gold, minimum 33 gold. That could be worth as much as 300 gold for your entire team if you use it on a tier 2, as that momentary fight here. Priestley getting low, but it's all a bait on in. This ain't a 1v1 at all. This is like a 4v1 going on in, but knowing that Mike has the ultimate, they cannot afford to make the same mistake twice, so instead, call it off early.
I like bailing out your ADC here. A little bit unsure what the rest of the team was doing here, because there's not really anything to fight around over the side of the map. There's no Fury up, there's no real neutral objectives, and instead you lose some farm in mid lane, which isn't really what you want to be doing. You want to be pushing this lead over Terra Timsor as much as you can. We saw it work wonders last season.
No!
Just deleted.
The silence into the thunder that So for those who don't know, I'm gonna the old Raijin, as soon as you were off the screen, you used to be untargetable. They changed that, and that shows why. So that you can do things like that and look cool as hell coming out of the solo lane.
It was fantastic, and that's exactly the kind of rotation you want to be seeing. If you can rotate and get something, all the better, because anytime you rotate and your opponent stays in lane, that's farm for them. That's advantage that they're taking, and you get punished for being proactive. So I really like that from our friend the Scottish play over here in the right-hand lane, who has struggled a little bit, but now they're turning the aggression around on just like Azza.
Oh, it's huge, and it's gone as well. They're going to go back in for the chalk as well. They will also make sure that they don't lose too much. They hopefully can go ahead and take this one down. Death from below, and one final skewer is all that's needed. Great positioning there. Comes on through. An interesting fun fact, both this Hades and Shark have the same voice actor, so it's really difficult to tell who's who just on the voice lines when they're using their abilities.
It is a fun fact. I didn't know that.
It's very fun. And, Timzors.
Damage Darmic Pillars did?
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Wow. I really want to call attention to the way that Pink Unicorn and the Scottish play handled the gank onto Casvet there. In that they saw the axe was placed very far away from where Casvet was, and it's very common in your solo queue games for people to follow the Chuck and leave the axe, and then Chuck gets to teleport much further away from the two players ganking. But that was a lot like watching players mark in sports, where you follow another player around, and we saw both players split up. So one followed the Chuck, one covered the axe, and it meant that there was nowhere to run for Casvet. Really heads up.
Oh boy. Ehete do grab themselves the Fury. Was expecting it might be stolen away, but will these shots land and ring from far down? No vision. Mike follows the damage numbers and comes up big. Takes down one, and with that as well, both the front line have made their way over here. The back line and damage dealers trying to cut off the path. But a nice Darkest of Night, Azers on their own, and a foe very far away at this point in time. Meanwhile, mid lane, tier 2 is getting pressured out. Team Toxic may have lost the last fight. Judas jumps in aggressively and finds Mike. What is going on here?
So good from Judas Priestley, winning the matchup that has been confidently taken by his opposite lane number all throughout this set. And talking of set,
he's not done.
Unicorn.
Oh, they're going on in. Out come the Taiko drums, but they just shoot wide. Judas is still leading the charge here. They will use the Aegis to buy themselves enough to get on through. Solar Swing isn't going to do anywhere near enough damage. Casvet just about makes it away as well. But beautiful work there. Judas, as soon as Judas found confidence there, they're like, no. I'm going. I've already got a kill. If I get another one, great. I trade out 2 for 1. If I don't die and everyone else dies, even better. Absolutely great play here.
Fantastic play there from the ADC, knowing what your damage output is going to be, seeing how out of position the enemy ADC is. And then it bought time again for the jungler to come in and do jungle things. Not pick up a kill there from Pink Unicorn, but the poke was enough to really just stem the tide, because Team Toxic were really surging after getting that initial pick onto the Hades, and instead they were just completely dissuaded away from that tier 2 tower, and the favor feels like it's back with Ehete 2 now. Wind in their sails, able to sit around this Pyromancer, and that'll be the second Pyromancer of the game for them, or maybe they just want to claim the territory around this Fire Giant, and at nearly 20 minutes in, I can't blame them.
Alright, well, Dharmic Pillars goes down. Don't know whether or not anyone in Team Toxic knows that that's the case, but was used very aggressively to secure this. Everyone is all around this side of the map as well, and if no one knows that Dharmic Pillars is down, they could very well just try and set up Fire Giant. Most members from Team Toxic aren't here, and like you said, they've claimed a lot of the entrance points in. Cheeto's here, Cheeto's called it out, and watch how these members run on over. But Fire Giant now at about 60%, and it's falling fairly fast. Casvet here does have Blink and ult if they want to cause some big disruption. But the damage dealers have only just now made it in. This Fire Giant's under 10%. Ultimates go flying. This Fire Giant is stolen away, coming through from the Thunder Call. Great work. Unicorn finds the damage into the mage that's needed, and Casvet will fall down as well. But the Fire Giant was still stolen. Pink Unicorn still has the ultimate. They're not done here. They're going home with a double and maybe a triple.
That's 3 members off the board, just the duo lane remaining for Team Toxic. The Fire Giant may have been theirs, but this map is now in the favor of Ehete 2, who have all of their members on the table and enough health bars to try and push down some of these towers.
That's the game plan by the looks of it. They might be able to also as well. No, they don't have the option. The Hades does not have teleports. I was going to say if they had a ward they could place down to get them to TP in at full health, then it might work. But they've got to be very careful here. Dharmic Pillars is a lot of damage, but Mike isn't going to take it. And so they just don't quite have enough time to siege down this mid lane by the looks of it. Cheeto is back up and trying to play aggressively. And so Ehete will just go ahead and say, okay, we got fire, we got 3 kills. Let's not push our luck.
Right, and the unfortunate thing there was download later was so low in health that you couldn't really afford to tank the tower. So Dharmic Pillars even then was risky because you risk picking up tower aggro if anyone walks through it. I'm a little bit surprised they didn't the enemy team didn't even try and make that happen. Just take one tick of it, force the tower to target out download later and try and get a cheeky kill that way. Instead, though, now full health bars up around this Gold Fury. Team Toxic looking to try and take any kind of momentum they can in this game.
Ooh, they're still holding onto the Primal Fury. Blink on in from the Scottish play does not secure it. Landfall comes on out as well.
Oh, no.
And then somehow in the crossfire, both members fall incredibly quickly. I don't think anyone was aiming at Pink Unicorn. They just showed up into the fight and evaporated instantly. All of this because Download Later had to back around this Fury. At that point, either Ehete need to say no one is going for it, or Download Later stays and just acts as bait of being a low health member, I feel.
And now this is a really difficult situation for Team Toxic. Losing that, getting that shutdown bonus gold is huge, but not only is it huge, it went over to be like Mike, who is the person that's going to benefit from it the most. Losing Pink Unicorn there mattered a ton, but it looks like they could lose even more in this one.
It's very difficult at this point in time. The tower now under a lot more duress. This ROM putting out huge damage, but taking just as much in return from the Hades. Big Dueling Dragons doesn't find anyone because Kazvet waited on the dash in. There's the Storm Call disengage. Pink Unicorn just about times it well enough to not avoid too much damage. But now once again, the tables have turned. It's on for the retreat for Team Toxic. One member breaks out the way, but Pink Unicorn is going to follow on through. Great stun though, goes on through, and Timzor finds enough damage. Unicorn answers back onto the jungler as Judas Priestley finds the solo laner. But even so, diving under this tier 2 tower is not a good idea when Mike's up raining down damage.
But they do get the tier 2 tower, and Timzor falls as well. Ehete too.
Oh!
No!
Right on the edge, that landfall pulls on through, and Be Like Mike is able to answer it back. Zats takes him down in return, but it leaves at a 4 for 3. Both Pink Unicorn and Zats are sat around this part of the map. They do have minions, and they might just get a Phoenix for it.
They might do Cheetah. It's going to be able to disrupt them pretty heavily here, and if the 3 stays out from Pink Unicorn as well, they risk picking up the Phoenix aggro, but instead it looks like both members are going to get... Oh.
Yeah.
To something really minute there that Pink Unicorn did, which was hanging out just on the side entrance of the Phoenix. It's good practice as a jungler to hang out on those sides anyway in case someone oversteps and you're able to get an easy pick, but it was a support and you were unlikely to do that. Instead, what they were doing is just outside of those entrances, it becomes the jungle again. So they were getting the HP 5 from Eye of the Jungle to try and sustain up. Really smart.
Oh, really, really nice to see that. Now we can see as well, with this gold lead coming in, it's just shy of 1,500 or 2,000, excuse, which is nice. However, key items that are online, Polynomicon, Karen's Coin. I hated this Karen's Coin every other game. Now, it doesn't feel so bad here.
It doesn't. You've got a lot of that percent pen, and with
Hold on a sec. Too much damage going through on so many members here. Stormcall is a big silence, but it's not big damage. That's coming through, courtesy of Zats and this Yu Huang. Can't be answered back much from Timzor, but these health bars are so low, so it ends up as just a single pick.
If there's one caveat, I suppose, to the
No!
No!
Oh,
Hey.
no!
Oh, no.
That's 2 low health bars walking the same direction, and one of them's lazy backing, technically, you could argue, but unfortunate. But anyway, you were saying?
Charon's Coin. Yeah, Zats has been around for a lot of these fights, so it's going to stack up pretty easily, and you're going to enjoy having that sustain and movement speed. I feel like none of that matters if you're just going to get caught out, or your teammates are just going to get caught out by Raijin.
Unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Pyromancer does go down, and Eddie 2 do want to go ahead and... Well, hey, here's the best part about it. They forced the members from Team Toxic off so quickly, none of them could pick it up. So that essentially boils down to a moot fight. Let's see it. Come on, let's see it. We saw it from when Eddie did this. We got to watch it here for Team Toxic.
Yeah, there we go. That's minus 33 gold.
It is.
That's
potentially
huge.
More.
That's half a ward at this point in the game.
Yeah, well, it's 60% of a ward because you sell back for 60%. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
right?
yeah, 60% of a ward.
Yeah,
And or I guess 2/3 of a ward.
2/3 of a ward, something like that. It's 60% of a ward.
Either way, that's really less vision ultimately out of that, and maybe more.
Ooh, well, talking about less vision, with the Darkest of Nights, there's no vision available now. Ehete 2 trying to go aggressive here. They do pull out the they do use the Dharmic abilities. In fact, they use almost everything in that engagement, but they only go ahead and get Taiko drums. So Team Toxic in a very good position here to try and start up this Fire Giant if they feel so inclined. But right now, it's Ehete 2 who are jockeying for the control.
Our download later has taken a good chunk of their health, and without a traditional tank in the solo lane, you're not necessarily going to have someone who can be the one to aggro this Fire Giant. So you know, I suppose, if you're Team Toxic, that they're not going to go for the objective here. They want the fight instead. But how long can you fight when you've got fire minions coming down the mid lane? It's a real question for Team Toxic of how long do you feel comfortable sticking around for. And they're looking to get caught out any moment. Their front line just got chunked there by the two backliners of Ehete 2.
It did. I just want to point out a real quick thing. Notice the upgrade that Judas went for here with that upgraded Deathbringer. Last game we saw them go for the upgrade to the Executioner, but this time they've gone to upgrade the Deathbringer and not to Envenom.
Interesting. I suppose if you're looking to have your escape up more often and
oh, he caught him with a dash!
Well, it's not bad. It's not bad.
It's really not bad. Just about almost taking down Azza there. As in goes the Hades. Pillar of Agony does go ahead and get one, but the health bars just melt too quickly. No magical defense means that you are a free pick for this Raijin right now. And now Team Toxic, they're going to surge forward.
It's just been a real game of back and forth. So I feel like both our prior games was about one team gets control over the game, works out a game plan, executes it, and the other team doesn't really have a lot to say about it. This game, it feels like whoever wins a fight surges forward and then stays a little bit too long. Loses, I don't want to say ints, but maybe unintentionally.
A bad time.
Yeah, they have a bad time. They come a cropper. And then we go back to this state again, where we're hovering around objectives. No one really wants to be the one to step up, and we get to play it all over again. And given how entertaining these fights have been, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I also want to have more interesting things to break down than someone goes in, gets deleted, some cleanup kills are happening, and then we return.
No, there's no cleaner in this
game.
Come on, there's no cleaner in this game. That was game one.
God damn it!
If you're gonna say, look, if you're gonna say that same thing, I'm gonna say the same thing. In
I know. I should have learned by now. I should have learned.
Yeah. Also, I think the reason why this game feels so equal, look at the KDAs on things. Timzor is 4-5-5. Pink Unicorn is 8-1-5. Both these players have good score lines. Well, reasonably decent score lines if you're okay with being a mage that's technically negative.
Oh, hold on. Hold on.
What are we holding? What are we holding for? What am I holding to?
Runic Bomb?
Runic Bomb? Who's picking it up? Who's picking it up? Who's getting it? Who's getting it? Who's got it? Hey! There we go.
As you were saying.
But yeah, both these two have had a fairly decent game. That was my point.
Oh, well, and that is really important because we saw what felt like Pink Unicorn really focus out Timzor in the last game, and they certainly tried this game. I feel like Timzor has been a lot more successful on this Raijin at just staying alive, and then that's paid off into better team fights for the way that Team Toxic has played. And you're right to point it out. Granted, things have felt a little bit more uneven, I suppose, on the side of Ehete 2. It's been a lot more about can we set Pink Unicorn up for a successful fight, whereas you look at both backliners contributing to these fights. On the side of Team Toxic, it potentially feels like they're in a better position to succeed because you're not putting all of the weight onto one
Oh,
player.
landfall! Zats use the beads in the air! Just about manages to disengage, but Judas is so far forward, they're gonna get eaten alive by the jungler. Never mind! They end up trading it out 1-for-1 in this process. Tycho Drums from the left-hand side puts huge damage into the Hades. Be Like Mike takes one down, but Zats is running the show for Ehete 2.
With the Hades still alive and pretty healthy too, it's essentially like you've got a second damage dealer compared to being 2 front lines and 1 damage dealer on the side of Team Toxic. A little bit better position for Ehete 2, but you can't leave Be Like Mike unattended because this ADC's got a lot of attack speed now, and these towers are looking pretty vulnerable for the side of Team Toxic.
Most certainly, and with that Death's Temper coming on out as well, these damage numbers just hit harder and harder and harder. And Mike has had a pretty decent time in the later stages of these team fights. They've not been forced into the ults, I feel. So it looks like, though, both of these two teams are just going to sit around Fire Giant here.
And this has been where we've played a lot of the game, and it's really showed how these teams have really focused, given that Judas has left us with the wards placed screen up for quite some time now. And
I feel like it's a personal grudge here.
That's set at 16 wards, which is a lot.
Good.
That's a lot to ask your
more upset
mid
at-
laner.
I'm more upset. So here's the thing. I would be upset at Pink Unicorn, but you can use the sand clones and they show when people are nearby them. So they're almost like mini wards.
I still hate that.
I still hate it as well, but that's what's to be expected from a dirty, dirty jungler. See, look.
Wards. I love wards. You know that.
No,
from
you love
conversing
wards.
with me.
You don't speak for everyone.
I point
don't
out
speak-
all the time that people died in positions where you could have easily warded. That's
Yep,
like one of our
yep.
bits that we do.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So, just on that, going back to that Deathbringer then side of things, we are going to see here that Mike has opted for the Envenom. Out of the two of these two now, they're both at the late game. Does that affect which one swings harder right now?
It really depends, because with Xbalanque you've got shorter ranged abilities, so you really struggle sometimes if you're getting boxed out of these fights to get in a position where you can take advantage of the cooldown you're getting from Malicious Deathbringer. Plus, the way that Envenomed works is it doesn't speed you up, but in slowing the enemy down, it allows you to mitigate some of the what do we call it? The attack while
basic
moving
attack
penalty. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by doing that on a god like Ram, who has a really great stim as well, I feel like if Be Like Mike ever gets an angle in these fights where you're not having to play back as an ADC, when you're in that position where you get step forward, you start getting that.
Another big landfall. Both of the frontline beads on this Hades just about gets away, but these beads were way too late again from another member from Ehete 2, and that just means that Pyromancer goes down for free, and with no teleport now, Fire Giant is on the docket as well. You can see right now that this Hades is trying to stay alive using their Devour Souls, but they just don't have the damage output for it to sustain up. So now it's actually looking at maybe a bit more of a fight around this Fire Giant, but fortunately for Be Like Mike, they are just in the backline, left alone, as is the other damage dealer, and this set is ruining these backliners' day. Azza looking now to try and answer back a little bit. They put in a good chunk of damage, and they're going to run everyone else out of the way. If Priestley isn't careful, they're going to die as well, but minions should answer it enough. Judas Priestley grabs the kill. That is 3 members for none. Team Toxic, what went wrong?
I think they just didn't have eyes on Pink Unicorn. Pink Unicorn was able to get onto the backline, take out the damage dealers, and without the damage dealers, this composition falls apart a little bit. Interesting here to go for the Fire Giant. I like pressuring the base a little bit more. You had good wave priority in both of your lanes to be able to push through, and now you've lost that, so by the time you get the Fire Giant, both these waves are going to be out in mid, and plus, look, here comes Casper.
He's early on the ultimate, but he can't secure it. So at the end of the day, there is not much more to worry about. And now it's a drip feed in. That's them taken care of. 2 backliners are up as they died near simultaneously to Pink Unicorn. But that mid wave, if Mike can clear it before they show up, then they're fine. But keep an eye again on Unicorn, wrapping around the back here, leading forward on in. Priestley's the second member in, but eats way too much damage from these RAM autos. Now has to try and find a way to sustain up. Mike could look for a kill potential, but the Death's Embrace and Arcee are just too much. Landfall off the mark this time. Now it's essentially just a 4v5 siege. I wouldn't mind seeing Ehete go ahead and grab the towers instead, and it looks like that's what they're going to do.
Absolutely, it's a good call here from disengage from the siege, move over. You have got the enhanced fire giant as well, so you don't need to worry about the waves on these towers nearly as much. They did get the beads out from Raijin, but I don't know if that was necessarily seen, but that's something to pay attention to as well as this fight moves on. It's a little bit hard to work out your lockdown on this team or your engage necessarily, because you do have decent CC coming out from the Ganesha, but if you commit to diving with Ganesha, then your backline's very exposed, and I don't think that's a position you want to be in either. Now they've got the 4-1 split going. I do like this position quite a bit, and they are able to chew through these waves with both Branching Bowlers and Zatz's damage output on this Yu Huang. It's just whether they feel like they've got the room and the time to step forward and try and take down one of these Phoenixes.
You can see as well, Kazvet looking to try and split between the two. Dharmic Pillars locks in both damage dealers here. Forces up into the sky with the Astral Barrage. Phoenix still holds well though, but that is 2 ult, or 1 ult for 1 ult at this point. And Mike without ult is a very prime target, especially when they're at half health or so. There's Sprint, there's the ult, there's the Dueling Dragons as well. That's so much damage onto Mike, but they turn it around into the Hades, who just overstepped too far. Unicorn loses the 1v1 trade. The Phoenix goes down, but now Raijin is pushing everyone out of the base. They take down Zax as well. Phoenix does go down, but 4 members, they step on the gas, and the pedal turned into a rake and smacked him in the face.
What a metaphor. Hey, I feel like Terra Timsor has been gifted. You know, in Pokemon, you have hidden abilities that only specific versions of the Pokemon. I feel like Terra Timsor has the hidden ability of Raijin, where if enemy teammates are on low health, everything hits. You get an accuracy buff if your enemy teammates are low, because Raijin has just been here sweeping everybody up, but Force the Aegis there. Great Dharmic Pillars from download later.
It is great, but it doesn't end with much, so instead it's a 1-for-1 trade out on Phoenixes, and with that, with the health bars as low as they are, no one on Team Toxic can afford to stick around. The big thing for me in that engagement is just the positioning that everyone on Eddie went for. It felt like it was an end call, but the Phoenixes were still standing, so it had to go for Phoenix.
It's a really, really tough play. I think they took just the wrong angle on it. I thought the Dharmic Pillars to start the fight were really, really strong. But then there was no follow-up to try and kill these backliners. And that was what came back to bite them, because it was Terra Timsor on the back end of that fight cleaning up their own damage dealers, and suddenly everything's falling apart for Ehete 2. And now they don't have a lead heading into this next Fire Giant fight. And we're going to do this bit again. Okay. That was the quickest response time I think we've seen from anyone killing.
I mean, look, you made it a bit. I
wasn't complaining about doing the bit. I was more complaining about how long it's taken every time. But you know what? Credits download later. Good response times there on picking up the Runic Bomb.
So far, Zat's looking to disengage here. Cheeto eats a lot of damage from Judas.
Good beads.
Not off the mark this time. Very good beads. May have also been the same last time as Judas. Well, it's like 6 to 1 half a dozen. Good beads, but you're in a position where you had to use your beads, so can we really be that complimentary to an ADC? Do they really deserve it?
Now Supersonic Blur is negging ADCs as well.
Look, I will neg every role that is not the role I play. That said, this mid laner trying to put out huge amounts of damage, but being a squishy, useless mid laner, they immediately end up falling. They weren't useless, they did so much damage that Azza around the back is able to clean up one, but Pink Unicorn is doing the exact same thing. This support puts in huge damage. The support takes down the jungler! Even in that situation, Zats finds one around the back. It's a 2-for-3 situation and a TKO. Cheeto, once they get Solar Swing up, should be able to disengage. But even so, it's going to be difficult to chase them down. At this point, don't chase, just go for an end. Well, I suppose if you walk into the base, then yeah, chase them down.
This is the position we've been in before for Ehete 2. You've got Hades, Yuhuang, Ganesha still alive, just the support and the solo laner for Team Toxic left up. And at this point, I think you know exactly what you're
going for end?
Escort these minions in. Ult back up for Zats as well. I think this is wise.
They're going for the ult. Yeah, you can see they're trying to fight this one out, but the health bars are just way too low. Download later is just taking too much damage. They end up falling here. Zats now ends up taking way too much damage and has to disengage, but thankfully, the Hades does put out work. But now here's the problem. The Phoenix has respawned, and there's no one left to help you.
Secret Raijin passive came back in clutch again. Low health members on the enemy team. I'm gonna hit everything.
See, this is why I wanted them to take those other two towers with that first fight. No, it still goes down! I wanted them to take the last tier 1 and tier 2 tower. Because if those are down, they end. Like, yeah, easily, absolutely. I feel they end.
You've got so much more reduced health on the Titan that way, because that's how the towers work in Smite, is they contribute to the Titan's health. And then you also have another angle of attack. You get to spread this a little bit wider too, and that's part of the problem here as well, I think, is you're just trying to go through one entrance on the base. That middle Phoenix is spawning fire minions right now for Team Toxic, so you don't really have middle as a route to go through and split up. I think really just looking at this one angle, it makes the defense a little bit too easy for Team Toxic.
It does, and Priestley can't make an angle on in. This Fire Giant's going down for free. No one feels comfortable, because if this Fire Giant goes down, then the entire game just falls apart completely. TP in, coming through from Kazved as well. A tier 2 tower on the left-hand side needs a single minion to look aggressively at it, and it will crumble. But either way, it still stands. And that's all that really matters. That tower can be on 100% HP or 0.1% HP, and it will still give that HP to the Titan. As Mid Phoenix has respawned as well. So right now, Team Toxic, do you just like push down a Phoenix? Do you go for towers and then like what are you looking at now? With
you get into Phoenix range, you pop Ram Stim, and you shoot through the tower. Sorry, just the tower, then to its feet. Great landfall again. Doesn't really amount to much, but it looks like Download Lever is going to pay the iron price here.
It almost paid the iron price, but Azza finds out that the jungle is not a safe place to stand. Good use of that cursed Onk comes out, as now Terra does not end up falling just yet. This is an absolute bloodbath. This could very well be the end of the game. Zats, the only real member here, looking to try and keep everyone in good stead. They're just getting CC'd out. Great use of Dueling Dragons again. And now Download, keeping them in place, keeps the Phoenix alive. Cheeto can't deal with this, so it's going to have to come down to Kezved. But even so, it's a double kill for Zats. They lose the Phoenix, but Kezved can't really do much else here. At this point, it's just, who do you want to die to? Pick your poison.
You got to pick Phoenix, right? This potentially actually gets... Given the healing and the...
He's just going to take this tower.
Take the tower, yeah.
The tower. Yep, there it is. One minion looked at it aggressively, and it's late game, so Chuck is but a big minion. See?
I mean,
I'm prophetic.
What is Chuck but like the third stage evolution of a brute minion?
Of a minion. Actually, that's a good point. Going back to it, it's minion, then brute minion, then Chuck.
Yeah.
And if you give a minion a Firestone, it turns into a fire minion. Oh, it makes sense now.
It all makes sense.
Speaking of things evolving at this point, Elixirs of Power are starting to come online. Just watched Pink Unicorn pop one, and Be Like Mike has one with a Power Pod as well, so... I'm scared for these next team fights, because I don't think team fights are happening now.
They're really going to be quick and brutal. The other thing is with those power pots as well, you do extra damage to Phoenixes, Towers, Titans, all these structures. They're going to be much easier to take down too, and you've got 2 high attack speed gods looking at them as well. I think this is going to really come down to whoever wins the next fight.
Who got the bomb?
And who can get their power potted carry up to the structures. I know that's not high level analysis, but it's the thing to pay attention to is does Be Like Mike or Pink Unicorn survive the next fight? And if they do, can we escort them to the win condition?
Yeah. And at this point as well, like Ehete 2, the last main time that they went into this fight, they popped everything all at once and overstepped their boundaries. Now, great support play coming through. Judas finds one round the backside. They're dealing in a 2v1 situation at this point in time as Timzor fights Hades at this point in time. Not going to find too much to worry about, but it's a full disengage right now because these carries are just too low. The Hades is chasing out one, but the Hades needs to be helping the team because they're falling apart.
With just the 2 backliners left from Ehete 2, there's not much to save them if they do get engaged on, but there's Be Like Mike who survives, deciding not to end the game, instead looking, I think, to head towards this fire giant, which is spawning up.
Okay.
I don't know that I like this. You've got Potion of Power and no one to stop you engaging. I feel like this is the opportune moment as Team Toxic to try and end it.
I mean, you don't even necessarily have to end. Just push up that mid Phoenix there. Minions are on their way. You get 1 minion in, and the Phoenix dies in two basics from this ROM. But they will go ahead and grab this fire giant. I doubt they'll wait for Azza. Good, they didn't. They don't need more damage on them as they've got an elixir of power as well now. But like I said, I don't think these team fights should be happening this late into the game.
No, and I think if you've got an ADC with a Potion of Power and all of these waves pushed up, I think it's on Team Toxic to try and look to really split the map, even potentially look to backdoor through duo lane here.
Oh, well, here we go. Cheeto ult does not hit anyone, but round the back, Be Like Mike is taken care of. That's the target that needs to go down. Timzor does take down the return ADC, but Pink Unicorn's damage is good enough. Timzor, though, gets a triple kill because of Raiju damage, and now Azza comes in to clean it up. Download later. We'll see you later. With just this team left, these 3 members, they've got minions in. They don't need anything else. This Titan, look at that health bar getting shredded. It's going to take a while, but only Download later is here. They're doing everything they can, but it's just too much. Team Toxic take the set in 3, but it was not easy.
That was such a tense game. It felt like it could have gone either way at any point. And if that's what the 2 ends of this division can show, I think there's going to be an exciting split for the Ragnarok division. Great job there by Team Toxic. Well done for fighting that one out Ehete 2. You were absolutely the underdogs in that matchup, but you made that set incredibly interesting.
100%. Like I was giving Judas some flack in between the in the break and things, and like, oh, you couldn't have just won game 1 or you couldn't have just lost game 2. But if you're gonna come away with a banger of a game 3 like that, like usually most game 3s that go super long, you hate them because like, oh, just one team just can't end or anything. This was haymaker, stand back up, haymaker, stand back up. Both of them punch at the same time. And just about do these 2 teams come away with this scoreline. It's absolutely insane.
It's a really, really great set. I think, as you say, the thing that often makes those long games boring is no one really takes fights either. Both these teams were just spoiling for a fight constantly, and they were fights that were interesting to watch as well because it felt like so much of the carry potential came down to the set on the one side and then the backline on the other side, and so you're watching this kind of ring around happening constantly. Really, really fun Smite to watch, and I know I'm excited for the rest of this split over here on Smite Night.
I am indeed. I do believe we have to go ahead and sort out MVPs as well for this side of things. If I'm looking at Team Toxic, I kind of have to look at Timzor, especially for like the last game as well. After the focus from game 2, they just say, nope, I'm going to play something different. I'm going to be aggressive. It cost me a little bit, but the damage output just shows 50,000 player damage in that last game. They showed up big with that, hidden passive, like you said.
And for me, I feel like it's become a little bit of my brand now that I always pick people on the losing team. But I think it would be wrong to not let Pink Unicorn get some amount of recognition.
Oh no! If I can pick losing team, it's Pink Unicorn. Sorry, I'm thinking the winning team only. Yeah, no, it's Pink Unicorn. It's Pink Unicorn.
I suppose that leaves us with our 2 MVPs being Terra Timzor and Pink Unicorn for the set. And just to say a little bit about it, game 2 felt like so much of it came down to the way that Pink Unicorn played, and then game 3 they just carried that momentum forward, and we really saw lots of attempts to really turn these fights around. Terra Timzor was the answer in the end, and it worked out phenomenally for Team Toxic.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, Team Ehete, like, download later. If Pink Unicorn didn't have game 2 and 3, download later was absolutely ridiculous. Setting up this Maui, playing incredibly well. All of these pulls, the land pulls looked incredible for them. On the other side of things, if Timzor didn't have such an impact in the last game and the first game, Be Like Mike just absolutely steamrolling the lane was incredible. Like, there are arguments that can be made on both sides of things. So it is just about like it's by like the finest of margins, and we could sit here for hours debating on that, but that will unfortunately not be happening, as that is the end of the set and the end of this broadcast. If you do want to make sure that you're all up to date on things with when the next broadcast will be happening, then you got down below, you've got the Discord where you can find and follow us. You've got the Twitter. You can just follow the stream as well and you'll be notified. But for now, I have been Supersonic Blur. I have been joined by the absolutely fantastic Haunting as my chair 2, and Judas Priestley on the old production as well, and playing in this game. You've been a fantastic audience. We hope to see you next time, but for now, take care.